The Empire of Rock is a country in which the four great duchies not only have special powers, but also have greater authority than His Majesty the Emperor himself. Supernatural abilities are passed on to one descendant in each generation. Serdaya's is metamorphosis, Gerver's is insight, Rodvik's is breathing, and Gebetsmen's is ice power. It is precisely these abilities that increase the rank of Duke, but because of the cursed energy called that accumulated, as it was used, everything is bad. The representatives of the duchy were doomed to a short, painful life. The only mage capable of healing was Rutium, who possessed high healing abilities. This girl was the main character, and it was because of her abilities that she died. She runs down the street, hearing screams behind her, asking her to stop. The baby almost stumbles, but hurries forward, realizing that this can't be the end. She wasn't properly fed, but she got strength from somewhere. Even though it was just a dream, the blonde doesn't want to live like this. There was no way this should have happened if God does exist. The girl hopes that He will save her from the terrible and make sure that she is happy in the end. After her mother's death, her uncle sold the heroine into slavery, and the next 10 years literally became hell. She stands silently while the seller shouts about selling her for cheap. Realizing that the girl has lowered her head, the brunette hits her in the face, ordering her to raise her face and smile affably so that she can be sold faster. A low male voice is heard. He does not understand why the child is being so cruelly abused. Holding out his hand, the Duke asks the blonde to come with him. He will help her. That day, the little girl thought that she was finally saved. She blindly believed that if she gave him her hand, the suffering would end. But this was only the very beginning. The girl was named Agnes because she had no name, and as he sat her down on the bed, the man asked her to close her eyes and concentrate, imagining the healing of the body. A lot of strange thoughts flash through her head. She has never done anything like this, so she doesn't understand what's what. But then inside her heart feels like it's being squeezed with pliers. Turning away, the heroine screams that she won't succeed, that her insides won't hold up if she waits a little longer. But the young man doesn't listen, saying that she's fine. From the very beginning, the hero began to feel how this dark energy that prevented him from breathing was gradually leaving his body. Agnes was given the order to continue until the last. The girl was born only for him. No matter how much she screamed, Gerver did not want to stop. There was simply no benefit in this. He kept asking to heal his wounds. Almost immediately, it became clear that the heroine was taken only to get her powers. Of course, she tried to escape, but each time it was a big mistake because she was caught. In the end, the Duke became even more cruel, although it seemed that it could not get any worse. 10 years passed in torment, which dragged on terribly long. The body became weaker and weaker. The girl hopes that God exists, and having heard her prayers will help her survive all the bad things, taking her closer to Himself and providing her with the happiness that she deserves. The suffering should have ended. Opening her eyes, the little girl sees the light that shines from the window. Perhaps this is the afterlife, and it seems that everything is not so bad, because at least she stopped suffering. Her hands reach forward, and her gaze freezes as soon as it focuses on the small fingers. The blonde jumps up on the bed, not understanding why she suddenly decreased in size. The door swings open, and a woman appears, clearly outraged by the fact that the child is still lying peacefully on the bed. No one cares about the death of her mother. Breakfast won't make itself so. Agnes, who usually does all the housework, will make it for her, and she still can't come to her senses, not understanding what it's all about. As soon as a question arises that seems to be true, the woman gets even angrier. The aunt is made to understand that no one remembers the day before. Today it seems to have evaporated from consciousness. There is awareness in the blonde's eyes. Her mother died when she was only 7 years old, and now when they tell her about yesterday, it feels like it's a real dream. It seems that this is reality after all, because the pain in the body before death was quite real. It was reborn before meeting Guer, who tormented her. Jumping out of bed, the blonde hurries to the door. She understands that it is time to run away before things get even worse. In any case, she will be sold. She cannot stay in this place. This time, the heroine does not want to die in agony. But if the Duke finds her, this is exactly the fate that awaits her. Running around the corner, the beauty runs into someone because she did not see at all where she was running. The girl looks up and freezes, but already from shock standing in front of her is one of those she knew from her past life, and there is no time for jokes. An assistant comes up from behind and picks up the body in his arms. He needs to search her to see if his lordship has been robbed. He has all his things with him. He can see it anyway. The uncle who finally caught up with the runaway runs up and asks her to give the child back to him because he was going to sell her tomorrow morning. But now that won't happen. The Duke does not want to listen to the old man, and squatting down asks the blonde how old she is. The knight behind asks her not to be shy. Nothing will be done to her. It turned out that the girl was only 7 years old, but even so, something was wrong. The child was too thin, the skin was covering the bones, and she looked like she was no older than 4 to 5 years old. Theon flashes through her mind for just a second. She is only 2 years older than her son, and judging by everything, that man won't calm down so easily and continues to scream. Extending his hand, the young man suggests that he take her with them. Frankly, she doesn't have much of a choice. If she doesn't go with him, then her uncle will give her into slavery at the market. The future should never be repeated, so the heroine timidly asks if she will be hurt. If she asks to be treated better, perhaps it will be so. The hero must have been abusing the child, making her feel bad. 2 people were looking at him with such looks as if they were ready to incinerate him right now. The young man picks up the baby in his arms and calmly says that he will never hurt her this time. It is his oath, which is worth a lot, and he is telling the truth. The blonde also looks with slightly frightened eyes, which will fill with tears at any second. If this is the case, she agrees to go with them. It's all decided. Jed will take care of the rest, in the form of that man who remains nearby. He just starts screaming and complaining about what's happening. Putting a heavy hand on his shoulder, the brunette suggests discussing all this with him, because in this way, perhaps they will still reach at least some understanding. The duo had already set off for the carriage. The Duke was looking at the child. She was a little funny, and in his eyes looked more like a big dusty rabbit. Finally deciding to speak, the blonde finds out if it is really the Duke in front of her. She lists only 4 families that are the most important in the empire. The girl lies about how she realized that the man was from the Rodvik family, saying that he was just wearing expensive clothes, when in reality, only the most important ones have abilities. Judging by the energy around the young man, he is one of the greats. The hero noticed that despite her age, the child is very smart, although it is still not clear why she ran away. As it turned out, the young man's name was Blake, and after hearing this, the young lady froze with her mouth open. Only now did it become perfectly clear to her where exactly she had ended up. Rodvik is the most famous family of assassins in the Empire. They have the ability to control breath. Rumor has it that the Duke is a cold-blooded killer. He and Gerver must be birds of a feather. The blonde quickly realized that she needed to do everything so that he wouldn't find out about her abilities. Her health didn't allow it yet, but she needed to get back on her feet as soon as possible. It's very hard for her. The morning was difficult, both physically and mentally. Her eyes close and her head calmly falls onto the side wall. Blake continues to look at the face of his interlocutor, thinking about how smart she is. Perhaps she will even be able to bring Theon to his senses, who has been completely out of his mind lately. I remember that day when the girl, as usual, was sitting in the cage. She opened her eyes to see 2 men behind the bars. They were discussing what they could take from her, but it seemed that Gerver left them nothing. The Duke lost everything he could, which was a minus, because he had to hurry and rob everything to the last thread. This was the moment that could not be missed. The girl is unusual, and the men decided that they could make a fortune by selling her to someone else, from a wealthier family. The girl starts coughing. She can't hold back. Unfortunately, there is blood. The guys immediately jump back. They are not sure whether the heroine has caught some disease. Because such symptoms appear, she may also be contagious. The blonde wishes that they would quickly start to be afraid and finally run away as far as possible without interfering with her retreat. Her heart is simply breaking into pieces. The most terrible thing. That dream still continues that day. The lady was needed despite her suffering. Tears involuntarily flow down her cheeks. Rodvik does not understand what she had to go through. The baby woke up and saw a beauty named Anna in front of her face. She immediately answered the question of where she was, or rather in the estate of His Grace the Duke. The eyes moved to the sofa. The heroine accidentally stained it. She immediately jumps up and apologizes that the cause of the damage. The words slightly confuse the maid. Anna had heard that a child had almost been sold into slavery in that square, but hearing something like that made her heart clench. It was unclear what she had to endure. To at least lift her spirits a little and show that she is safe here, the lady puts her hand on her head, asking if the beauty will eat. She is probably hungry. The door closed. The child was asked to wait until they returned with a tray. Bad thoughts were mixed up in her head. Not only did the girl fall asleep in the carriage, but she also got the sofa dirty. If the heroine is kicked out, Gerver will come for her. The Duke's family is not on the best terms with Rodvik, so for now you can hide in their mansion. The blonde understands perfectly well that she doesn't have many options of what she can do. She should stay in this place until she grows up, so that she can stand up for herself by the age of 14. She already needs to find a job. Someone entered the room silently. A guy with dark hair chuckled. It seemed that his father had dragged some mongrel from the streets into the house again. The boy attracts attention almost immediately, because it is impossible not to notice his differences. A lot of ominous energy has accumulated around his body. If the child is the heir, which is obvious, it must be that same Theon. He is probably in a lot of pain, because magic is not weak, it makes you suffer. Lowering her head, the little girl turns away. It was decided not to pay attention. If they find out about the power of rhodium, then all the terrible things will happen again. At the moment of conversation, Anna came inside, who had already grabbed a tray with fresh food. She asks the boy if he was going to use his abilities. A look full of anger passes to the lady. She apparently decided to teach him how to live, but she was never his nanny, so it would be better not to interfere. Deciding that all this is not worth his magnificent attention, the young man quickly leaves. He needs to wash before eating, and the two will do that. The procedure took quite a long time, definitely more than an hour due to the condition and a lot of dirt, but then the girl was transformed into a real cutie. The brunette climbs in for a hug. It's surprising that she had to hide her beauty for so long, which was different. Her hair was wonderful, as was her skin. It's hard to accept a compliment before the heroine was only called dirty and unpleasant, never thinking that she had a soul. While Anna was unable to tear herself away, a male servant arrived and decided to check how things were going with the child brought to the mansion by his master. The young man pretends to look around, wondering where the woman went. The blonde has turned from a dusty rabbit into a real lady, and that is precisely why she was not recognized. The butler of the Rodvik estate attracts everyone's attention, clearing his throat a little into his hand. He wants to make some important announcement. His Excellency asked him to convey something. The gentleman was interested in whether the baby had a name. If not, he simply had to come up with something new suitable for the child. The girl doesn't understand how she can answer anything her mother and uncle simply called her, "Hey you," or "Parasite." And only in the Gerver estate they called her Agnes. This was something new. The child does not want anything from the past life to be in this one, paving the way back. Therefore, he says that there is no name. All information will be passed on to the Duke. Most of the people in the estate bear the names that Rodvik gave them, because it was he, as the owner, who suggested something like this, a new life, a new name. His Excellency gave such a gift to those who wanted to forget about their past, plunging into the future. If the blonde agrees, they will be happy together. The girl turned out to be a real beauty. The servant told her this when he arrived in the office. It would be necessary to choose a suitable name for her that would reflect her essence. The brunette also found out more about that man. Her uncle was not just bullying his niece, and it couldn't be left like that because the baby's future depended on it. The Duke immediately asks what he means, and the interlocutor does not know how to explain. This cannot even be called normal upbringing of children at that age. The mother gave birth to a child on the street. She had nowhere to go, so she went straight to her brother, and that's how the two of them began living with Timbre. The man was clearly unable to take care of his own child, so the man took on all the responsibilities, believing that he would cope as best he could. The brunette fed the girl rather poorly and earned money by giving the blonde to beggars, since beggars with children evoked much more sympathy than those without. Time passed. The little girl grew up, and when she became older, she was forced to do housework, the ones she could do without any problems. The neighbors said that they haven't kept a rooster for several years, because they wake up every morning because of the screams from the beatings. They almost never miss a day. Anna said that the girl was constantly standing afraid to dirty the sofa even more. This is connected with her difficult past. She really had a very difficult time. The young man nods. He doesn't know what else to say, then quickly writes something down on paper. It's not worth opening the envelope yet, only the next morning. It is not difficult to guess that there is a name written inside, which will belong to her, if she can see it. If she does not read it, the night will come up with a new version for her. The brunette chuckles. He didn't think this idea was a good one from the start. She didn't even receive a primary education in her entire childhood, so she most likely won't read anything. That's right. The Duke must agree. But he is sure that the child is special, because this was confirmed when they were still riding back to the estate in a carriage together. The little girl asked what had happened to her uncle, and when she was told that he would never bother her again, she immediately assumed that he had been killed. That was the first thing that came to mind. The girl at such a young age knew what death was, because it was when everything you knew and you yourself came to an end. Rodvik did not even consider such an answer. The heroine's thoughts are not at all like those of an ordinary child. Her level of knowledge is high, much higher than that of an uneducated kid the hero orders to do as he is told. Once the lady has received the name, the knight will go to his uncle, who is very fond of money, since he will never be able to work again. It should be ensured that generous compensation is paid. Now the girl has become part of the Duke's family. She too will be close by and will be safe, never feeling left out, or like she is going the wrong way. For now, the baby was placed in a room with Anna. She thought it would be scary in a family of murderers, but here she received more sympathy than she expected. It's hard to believe that this place even provided the slave with a proper bed. She hadn't slept so well without any problems with comfort in a long time. The gaze moves to the window because a strange shadow falls on the door. Of course, Theon is there, looking intently at the baby. The girl does not quite understand when the man penetrated inside. She was not sleeping at all, but did not notice a single movement. He calls her doggy, addressing her. Timidly asking the question, the heroine receives a not very good answer. She was named that only because her hair is somewhat reminiscent of dog hair. The eyes carefully examine the hair in her mind. There is nothing similar. It seems that the girl is not afraid of her opponent at all. She does not care at all. A brunette from the Rodvik family. He can beat up a slave, and no one will even notice. With these words, he takes out a knife, which he puts closer to his face, showing his intentions. The beauty's face doesn't change at all. She knows that the guy is definitely lying. If the owner of the power wants to kill someone, a red aura appears around him, and it doesn't change. Nothing has changed around the young man. There is still the same black aura that calmly sways. He probably decided to threaten to make the child afraid. The eyes look sad, while the voice pretends to tremble. The girl asks not to do anything bad. She does not want to be hurt. Anger rolls forward. It is hard to believe that the little girl is not afraid. In any case, it is best not to overthink anything. The hero decides that everything will resolve itself calmly, without unnecessary problems. The girl will disappear just like all the others his father brought. The brunette orders the little girl to disappear by tomorrow morning. She asks why he needs this, because she sincerely does not understand, but it is all because he hates people. In her past life, the blonde knew almost nothing about other families, so she can't even imagine what kind of person he is. She has no options for what to say. All this time, the beauty was eating, and Anna was sitting next to her, who could no longer restrain herself saying what a cutie the interlocutor was. If she was still hungry, then of course she would get something tasty. The servant decides that it is time to stop being childish. He brought a new name, which is written on a piece of paper. The child has been waiting to see it. Anna is outraged in order to find out the new name you need to read it. It seems like a joke, but the friend asks not to worry, just in case he came up with a beautiful name of his own. The butler also does not understand what the gentleman was thinking when he set such conditions. It seems completely unacceptable. The girl did not even receive an education to be able to read. The child thinks that there is some kind of mistake here, because it is written Twarish Rodvik. The brunette immediately congratulates the lady on receiving a new name. The head of the group enters the room. He realized that there was a noise inside, most likely because of the envelope in which she wrote down all the most important things. He still had to find out more about what happened there. The girl managed to read the name, which impressed everyone gathered. Now she looks much neater after taking a bath and tidying herself up with Anna's help. The maid did a good job and deserves praise. The brunette still does not understand whether the child will really pass on the family name of the great family. Perhaps something is not going as it should. The girl wants to know something she is not sure if she should ask, but she is wondering why her last name is now Rodvik. She is not from the Duke's family. It seems that the heroine does not like it. But this is not so. Blake understands that for a commoner, the opportunity to become an aristocrat is a great rarity. In addition to all this, the baby becomes a representative of one of the most famous families that are different from others. Perhaps they just want to limit her to family responsibilities. It is more complicated. In the end, one can say that family is a great reason for submission. Many can say that since you are in a family, you are obliged to help in any way you can. There are still many terrible memories inside. No matter how the uncle treated the baby, none of the neighbors cared. They passed by without turning around. Duke Gervor initially told her to treat him like family, said that everything would be fine, and that they would always be together, but he kept pressuring her. Tuarish remembers being taken hostage, locked inside herself. Tuarish turned pale because she imagined Blake doing the same to her. The baby steps back, trying to say something, but it's all too complicated. She doesn't understand what to do next. She hiccups and can't stop. There is no way to retreat. The Duke tries to calm the child and carefully places his hand on the top of his head, saying something and gathering strength around himself. The servants standing nearby froze, because only now did they realize that the master had used his powers as if it cost him nothing specifically for the sake of his daughter. The man knows that using force shortens his life, but it seems that in the moment he does not care. Perhaps he has discovered strength. In his past life, Gervor learned everything and then changed a lot. He said that only he had such insight. That's why he managed to learn all the details. Since Duke Rodvik passed on the family name, perhaps he learned of the ability and wants to imprison it in his estate to gain advantages. It's too early to tell what happens if the maiden leaves the estate. Gervor kidnaps her, and then it's definitely the end. The lady calmly says that she quite likes the name. If everything is so, the heroine will be happy. Blake carefully takes his daughter in his arms. The girl can now call the man her father. The servant never understood in what sense the Duke decided to adopt the beauty. Nothing terrible would happen, but no one is immune from all sorts of rumors. The family has no problems with heirs. Theon exists, so if you suddenly adopt a commoner, others will start keeping an eye on her. The brunette pretends not to understand what is being discussed and what the consequences will be. It is better to take care of his son. Only his own family will think about him, and not other people. If you remember, the young man was the one who scared away all those children who appeared in this house. This time, he will have a little sister. It is completely different. There is still hope that the guy will not kill anyone. The man has become very withdrawn lately. He cannot continue to act like this if he is going to inherit the duchy. Tuarish will definitely have a good influence on the boy. The hero is going to adopt a girl. Such a decision cannot be made spontaneously, and such a reason cannot be the most important one. Previously, the gentleman was completely different. He didn't care. No one could change his mind. Now it feels like he is controlled by some strange force. Immediately after the conversation, a servant quickly runs into the room. He wants to say that the lady and young Theon have disappeared. They were not found in the room where they usually are. The girl is being taken somewhere she doesn't understand where they will soon be. It seems the boy got angry when he heard that Tuarish is now his little sister. The little girl gently pulls the guy by the sleeve and asks if they can go back. Her legs started to hurt because the journey was too long, which dragged on a bit. Throwing his hands away, the young man orders them to stop clinging to him. In fact, he doesn't care about anything, so there's no point in thinking they won't come back. The young master's horse was found near the monster forest. Blake decides to go there to quickly pick up the two. There is no need to wait any longer. The servant does not understand how the master is going to figure out the area. It is already evening, and at this time, entry into the forest is strictly prohibited. Blake knows everything, so he thinks that he just needs to hurry. Theon has enough strength to protect himself, but for the girl, it could be more dangerous. I'll have to use force. It's not the best idea anyway, considering how it affects a person. The man refuses to back down. He brought this child, so he must be held responsible. The girl hates pain. She also believes that horror happens in everyone's life. She tried to escape several times, but she was caught and hurt every time. One day the girl almost died, but still managed to survive. The man exclaims he did not think it was possible to go further after some terrible injuries. The girl was helped by prayers. This is the only thing she hoped for. So much she asked God to relieve her of pain, and it worked. I remember very well that people from other families were looking for Rudioma. Perhaps Theon was among them too, but now it's unlikely that we'll be able to say for sure it's unrealistic. The brunette exhales calmly, but believes that this is no longer true. Everything does not seem true, and the girl did not fulfill the request, so she should be ashamed. The young man turns away. He will not answer the question so that the lady understands something. The blonde does not understand how a 9-year-old child already has such an expression on her face. It is different. The maiden wants to ask for something else. This is the second time the hero once listened to the beauty, and this time everything went quite well. Her hand reaches for the guy's hair. He simply asks her to leave him alone, but the little girl smiles. She couldn't help but notice that the atmosphere in the air has become much better. The brother calmly replies that he brought his sister into the forest to feed her to the creatures that live there. There was silence, and a second later, the girl grabbed his hair, screaming and asking why. The hands move back, and the heroine already wants to apologize, but she understands that there is no point in this. It was the man who tried to feed her to the monsters, so everything is fine. Now the body is shaking a little with horror. It looks like they brought her here and tried to kill her because she was given the surname Rodvik, which did not belong to her. The guy lowers his head. He didn't really intend to give the maiden's body to the beasts. He just wanted to scare her a little. It's too late, the heroine starts crying. She doesn't understand what she did. The little girl wanted a quiet life. She wanted everything to end well. But no, even in this life, everything goes downhill, continuing to cry. She says that she didn't know that she would become part of the family. Even if the brother wasn't going to kick the blonde out, she would have left in a couple of years. The guy is trying to calm her down. He's sorry for everything he said. Behind them, they hear some rustling sounds that make them feel uneasy. They were not mistaken, because behind them, a tree is moving. Only now the duo realized that evening had come. It was too late, the forest would soon close. The animals gradually begin to crawl out. The snake and the wolf were the first to appear from the depths. The man asks to control himself, and on the count of 3, to run as far as possible. The two of them rush forward, trying to hide as quickly as possible, but there are too many obstacles in their way, forcing them to stop and scream. The hand reaches forward. The brunette wanted to use his powers, but too late he realized that they seemed to have dried up. He was no longer okay. The end awaited them. The young man answers the question calmly. If the monsters which have not shown themselves yet come again, it would be better to leave him alone and run away. The baby could hold out until morning, and then crawl out. Nothing would happen if he opened his eyes, and she would still be there, definitely having a hand in the murder. Something strange is starting. There are not enough nerves, but it is not clear what to do. There is too much energy around the body because the boy used a lot of his power. It is clear that the girl cannot abandon her friend. They must hold out together until the morning. There is only one thing that can be done calmly to hold out until the end. The beauty will be able to use her Rudium ability to heal the hero. A choice arose if the blonde does this. Everyone will find out about her powers, and the horror will happen again. The boy lies on his sister's lap and tries to breathe initially. The girl was supposed to die in the estate of Duke Gerver. The story has long since changed. The new family still seems like just a dream that came. If she is locked in the basement again after changing her mind, it will not be so simple. The girl is too unaccustomed to having a father and brother, as well as new acquaintances in the form of servants. Family is quite enough for her, but fear will remain inside her consciousness, not allowing her to breathe. The little girl had just decided what she was going to do. She would save her brother at any cost. It hadn't been that long, but she would be forever grateful. Rutium stretches his hand with force, and then he hears someone's quiet voice. The stranger does not believe that such an ability is in front of him. He asks to bring him to this new world and make a contract. Everything that was happening was too sudden. It was impossible to believe that something would change, but a beautiful lake suddenly appeared right before my eyes. The silly girl doesn't seem to hear. She also has to make a contract. The stranger laughs because the girl doesn't understand what it means. The contract of the star Rudium exists. The voice asks to speed up a little, because if a big star arrives, they will have big problems. She hates contracts and will get angry when she sees the power. The lake suddenly begins to sway. It seems the chief has arrived, and therefore the two who had spoken before disappeared in an instant, leaving the beauty alone with this monster. It is not surprising that there was a strange premonition. It did not leave the body. It seems that this is not the first time something like this has happened to the child, and she knows what is happening. A smile appears out of nowhere, but it does not bode well. They say the big star hates rudium. Theon needs to be cured before anything happens. Immediately, the body is enveloped in indescribable pain, which causes harm due to the power of Om. The girl must finish, she simply has no choice. The brunette cut down the monster with one blow and immediately began to smile. The gentleman pretended not to notice because he had already killed a whole bunch of attackers. The head rises to the sky. It became clear that the full moon had risen, which means there will only be more monsters, and it will be more problematic to hide from them. The man understands that this will most likely not happen, but no one can deny that Theon can abandon the child because he was against the girl. Blake waves it off. Maybe his son doesn't like people, but he's not a tough boy and knows very well that during the full moon, the forest becomes much more dangerous. The young man also thinks so, but he can't get the unnecessary thoughts out of his head. Anna heard the young gentleman calling his sister names, so it became clear that he still resists. Rodvik's strength can control breathing, so the guy is very sensitive. This is understandable. It is not surprising that he is the most capable in the family. The baby was so strong that after birth, the lady's body became much weaker. She lost some of her energy and therefore fell ill and died. There is no need to worry because the young man did not kill anyone. Tuarish will not be left alone under any circumstances. Of course, the brunette understands, but he still has a bad feeling. The duo came out into a clearing where they almost immediately discovered the young gentleman and lady lying unconscious, and behind them in the bushes, they could hear the stern growl of an animal. The man steps into the fight to prevent something terrible from happening. While the servant is about to protect the children, he runs up to them and tries to wake them up by lightly clapping his hands. Luckily, the boy is still breathing, and it seems that Rodvik Jr. is also okay, but they are so exhausted that it is unlikely that they will be able to get to their feet and run away. It's good that everything is going as it should for now, but most likely immediately after the duo wakes up, a lot of questions will arise. They are already spinning in their heads. The girl slowly opens her eyes, which are immediately hit by a bright light, which does not help in any way. She does not understand where she is because she is lying on a beautiful bed in a room. Anna runs inside, glad that the baby has woken up. She brings soup almost immediately. The maid heard that everything could have ended terribly if the master had been late. When the chief returned with Jed, they told him that a bird of prey had been watching the children from the bushes, but fortunately, it had been killed, leaving no chance. It is obvious that the baby was too scared, and because of this, she slept too long. And while eating, she realizes that she probably slept all day. The girl lowers her voice and asks about the young master. Anna coughed, but then smiled, saying that Theon was being looked after now, and that they still had to have a conversation with him. Jed knocks on the door of the boys' room in Rodvik's private mansion. He brought food because strength still needs to be gradually restored, even if it will be quite difficult. The guy sits wrapped in a blanket. He doesn't care that his name is being called. It's not surprising that he is still offended, because for him, something like this seems quite normal. Jed knows what happened, just like everyone else on the estate. The baby is the answer of a child without magical abilities in a forest full of monsters, and especially on the evening before the full moon. The brunette should be ashamed of what he did. He says he is no longer offended, but still turns away when he sits down at the table with food placed in front of him. In general, he is really not angry, but he wants to ask about the girl he heard that she still hasn't woken up, and this is not a good sign that can be used. The hero hasn't visited her since the morning. Anna cried until the morning, as if at a funeral. Although it is not at all clear what is wrong, because the doctor said that the child is not in any danger at all. Jed giggles, wondering why the gentleman is worried. The brunette is chased away almost immediately in any case. Everything ended on such a not entirely positive note, making a sad face. The young man says that perhaps he will leave, because inside his soul, there is too much brokenness. As soon as the door closed, the boy slams his fist on the table. He tries to convince himself that the girl doesn't bother him at all. He needs to ask her something, that's the only thing that matters now. There was a strange aftertaste, what happened in the forest. The brunette can't explain, because there is too much that is incomprehensible. The pain piercing his body and heart disappeared when he opened his eyes. It seemed like the logical outcome would have been something different after the battle with the monsters. It should have only gotten worse. But no, that didn't happen. He doesn't know what happened while he was unconscious. The girl trusted Theon, but he doesn't know how he should behave. Her father has already given her an educational talk, saying that the child considers the boy her brother and trusts him. The young man was asked to at least try to accept her, even if it would be relatively difficult. He remembers how he wanted to kill her. This feeling remained inside when they went inside the forest. The little girl not only didn't hide, but also dared to take the guy's hand at a moment when they were alone. It seems that she is not afraid at all. It can even be a little scary, and it is not clear how to fix the situation. The brunette doesn't eat. He's still thinking about why he couldn't scare the beauty. Now she'll become his sister, and this time it can't be avoided because reality is close. Someone's hand is visible behind the glass. Perhaps it's some kind of spy, and it would be better to call security. But for the first time, Theon wants to figure it out on his own. His mood has improved. It is unclear who sent the surveillance, but they will not touch the child. He himself will not allow anything to be done to her, because he understood that she has become family, which means Rodvik will help. Opening the door abruptly, the guy starts screaming, but after a second, he falls silent, because there is a child lying on the ground who is smiling slightly. He menacingly asks what she is doing near his room. Lifting the girl onto his back, the young man asks her to calm down. She is too frail, and even the argument that she reached the estate herself no longer works. If she eats when she eats Anna, will be able to gain more weight. The girl doesn't quite understand whether they are worried about her or trying to insult her, and tries to ask her to put it down. The boy points to the picture, "You can't forget to study so as not to be illiterate." Rushing forward, the heroine convinces him that she can read, but it seems to him that she is lying, because at that age it is almost impossible. She screams because she has no strength left to argue. In fact, the heroine has already graduated from high school, but that was in a past life, so it may not count. Now she will prove to everyone who is really who. The book ends up on the bed with the first page open, and the child begins to read something about a lying dog, which she seems to resemble quite a bit. The brunette points his finger at the pages every time, saying that they are very similar, but it is not clear what and how the blonde begs herself to be patient, because there is no need to argue with a 9-year-old. The door opens, and his father's voice comes out of the blue. Blake asks what his son forgot in the girls' room, assuming that he just got lost. The boy suddenly disappeared, so the man decided to check if he was bothering Twarish. It turned out that they were reading a book. He remembers the moment of the conversation with his wife. The husband said that one child was enough. She was weak, and there was no point in talking about a second baby. The brunette asked for forgiveness for doing something wrong. She wanted to give the boy a family because she understood that they both did not have much time left, and it was worth taking care of this with great diligence. The woman who wanted a second child died before he was born, unable to bear him. And it is hard to believe that Theon's home will be Twarish, a commoner from the street. The man clears his throat to make his voice sound as menacing as possible. The child is still being punished, which means it would be best to go back into the room and stop resisting. The boy used too much of his magic that day. If children are surrounded by a dark aura, the risk of death increases greatly. And it's terrible considering the forest and the full moon. The boy is the only heir of the Duke, who almost died at the hands of a stranger. She will have nothing to say, even if she is thrown out into the street. Blake is not going to drive her away. Instead, he carefully puts his hand to his forehead, saying that it seems there is no temperature. Jumping back, the little girl assures that she is absolutely fine. She is very sorry it was not worth putting the young gentleman in danger. She will not disturb him anymore, so as not to spoil anything. The guy asks not to talk like that. This is not at all what he wanted to hear when he came. He suggests the girl to lie down and rest. they will establish certain rules. It seems that the man is not angry at all. Everything now seems completely unreal, and the little girl does not understand how this happened at all. Firstly, the brunette asks never to humiliate herself. Tarish worries too much about what she does, and these are self-esteem issues that need to be corrected. The girl constantly mentions dirt and calls herself a slave. They don't know that this is all because of a past life that left its traces. It's still worth trying to become better. The most important rule is to never call your father a duke again, because he is different. He has already asked you to treat him better many times, and to show it with words and actions. Now the girl is his daughter and has the right to everything in this world. She must understand this in her thoughts. Already getting ready to leave, the young man asks to call Anna if he suddenly needs something. Tuarish is going to rest, but it is difficult to close her eyes because unnecessary thoughts remain. She has never called anyone Daddy. It is not surprising that she is very embarrassed. A voice is heard saying that they are finally alone. A talking squirrel is sitting on the bed, outraged by Rudiam's reaction. It seems that her voice has already been forgotten. They met near the lake when they were in the forest. With those monsters, the little girl understands that she saw something white. Then it was the main star that they talked about. It is not at all clear why the animal became a squirrel, he shouts, saying that this option is also not suitable at all. He had to appear shortly before the child lost consciousness. Rudiam reassures she didn't pass out. Because of the little animal, she just used too much energy. It became clear that the healing power was too much for the girl. Squirrel accepts the question about knowledge and smiles. Her body has existed since the very beginning of the emergence of powers, which were then distributed to other people. Firstly, it is worth knowing that the world is divided into two parts. These sides have two different relationships. One part is the mortal world, where people built their civilization. The second part is the place where the forgotten stars of life sleep. That place was ruled by the great sanctuaries. But one day, a war broke out, and they had to suffer damage. After all the battles were over, the four stars decided that there was no point in staying in this world, so they went straight to the humans, where it was believed that they would be more comfortable. They penetrated the human body, but people, alas, were unable to accept the power of the stars. The Great One took pity on the other four in order to save the people who received strength from suffering. She did something. The star sent its power to the human world and created a space between the two worlds. Such a portal is located in the Forest of Monsters, in the very depths near the lake. After this, one Great One descended into a man by the lake. Of course, by chance, she did not want it. And so Rudiam appeared. The rest could not adapt to the world of people, since they were completely weakened, and in the end, they returned to their place in the sky, falling asleep again. Then the power of the stars weakened. This finally led to the end. It was inherited through human blood. But Rudiam is something different. When the previous owner of the power dies, the power returns to its original form and wanders in search of a new owner. If spirits directly enter a human body, then power also descends into a person. At the moment it may seem strange, but in the end it is not so. Everything makes sense. Over time, people with magic lost control of the power of the stars and began to suffer. They felt bad because of their past mistakes. But it was difficult to change anything in the world. The great star took pity on those who walk the earth, so it did not deprive them of their powers. But on the contrary, this is what brought the owner of the power of Rudiam to the lake. It was very naive. Rudiam made a contract with other stars to help people all over the planet. The girl can't do the same because she can't leave the world. A contract with the owner is the only way to escape from the world of stars. That's why those voices wanted to make a deal with the blonde so much. The only problem is that Rudiam's power is just beginning with the new contract due to constant use. The magic has weakened, so the child has fallen into a deep sleep previously. The condition was to keep the stars and the lake a secret. This child must forget not only what happened, but also the road to the lake itself. If Tuarish used magic without a contract, then it was so difficult to do. They waited in their world, gritting their teeth, the big star, the most awakened of them all, so she didn't want to be left in the minus trying to get ahead. Tuarish only now realized that the squirrel had attempted to kill her, deciding that this was the best option. But in the end, she changed her mind. The animal understood that this was already a second life, and it was quite easy for her to find out this child can turn back time. that Sleeping Baby should find out the reason why she returned to the past. The star asks the person to sign a contract with her. It will be very profitable for her because she will be made stronger than everyone else, creating the illusion of good. And not only, the blonde turns away. She doesn't need any strength. She just wants to be away from the pain that she already had to experience in her past life. Squirrel said it would be easy, so now she doesn't have to worry if she makes a contract with the star. She won't suffer anymore when using the power of Rudiomi. The beauty did not understand every detail because there is too much unnecessary information. But if so, she is ready to receive the best and strongly hopes for a favorable outcome. Rodvik must consider this contract something important. One of the great 6 gods came down to her to make a contract and be by her side. This is always the best. Python says something slowly, trying to pronounce each word more clearly. Her name is already known. The star contract will be signed in a second. There is a light ahead and around that blinds the eyes. Tuarish, after a while, when everything was over, went to her father's office. She timidly lowered her head and said that she wanted to ask for something. It would be important. The girl is clearly embarrassed to ask for help. Perhaps she wants her father to read a book, but it is too difficult to understand deep down. The man envied Theon because he had a good opportunity. The guy exhales and calmly asks what the lady wants. She wants to take the squirrel that sits on her head. The animal is small, so it won't eat much, and especially too cute. It's not about the book. The Duke's expression quickly changes. Turish sees it differently. The man seems unhappy as expected. The slave can't even have a pet. A sad look falls to the floor. The little girl is about to leave when she hears that she can take the animal. Her eyes instantly light up with joy and a drop of disbelief. Virgo is now Blake's daughter, so she doesn't have to worry about such trifles. Next time you shouldn't worry so much before approaching and asking something. Jumping up and down, the lady sincerely thanks him and smiles. Noticing his expression again, she immediately apologizes for somehow disturbing him. Tuarish had already managed to run away without even agreeing with her father about where the squirrel would live. The brunette doesn't know how to make the animal comfortable, quietly, hoping that the greenhouse would be enough. Theon met a boy who made him frown even more. Standing in front of him was Robenhof Gibbetsmann, with a chilling ability that only their family possessed. The brunette pretends to say that he heard that guests had arrived at the estate and is glad to see them, although in reality it is clear that he feels bad. He really didn't want this meeting. The boy followed his father. Soon there will be a hunting festival in which 4 main families who have abilities should take part. An interesting rumor has already reached us that the young man has a relative without a title. This is completely wrong. Theon turns away. He is saddened by the note of his friend. Jed has repeatedly said that there can be nothing more noble than helping a girl. Tuarish is going out into the world. For the first time, she needs to pick out clothes and shoes. The servant laughed, saying that he could always replace the boy and become a good older brother, since the young master was unable to go with his sister. Then the boy got very angry. He didn't understand why his father allowed what was happening, and he had too many questions swarming in his head. Now it dawned on the young man that it was all because of Gibbetsmann. Now everyone was only discussing the girl. The Duke's family was generally very concerned about its good reputation. The little girl may get caught in the heat of the moment, and she should be protected from this. The young man asks her not to dream about the meeting because he has long since driven the girl away. Robinhalf doesn't look like he's impressed. Even if sometimes you can kick out someone unnecessary, the Duke will bring everyone back, considering that Rodwick carried out the adoption scheme this time. You could say that the brunette became the older brother, and no one even gave him the right to choose. It was something strange. No matter what nonsense Jed was talking, Tuarish would only call Theon that. The boy's imagination already had a picture in it, and he began to giggle maliciously. Gibbetsmann moved away a little and quietly asked if everything was okay with his friend. Anna brought the lady to one of the nicest boutiques. The woman who met them immediately began to be touched by how beautiful the girl was, and the fact that she was brought to her. The blonde quietly calls the maid. All this fuss makes her head spin. Her identity was supposed to remain a strict secret, but something went completely wrong as originally planned. Of course, you can't show the child to other people, but the lady from the boutique is also part of the Rodvik family, so you shouldn't worry too much. The woman had already said that the new name was a gift from the Duke. Many people in the duchy want to hide their past, and Blake gives people like her a new name and a new life. Trappet smiles as she says that the boutique helped her open Rodvik. She just dreamed of this day. And of course, when it came, everything turned out much better. The woman couldn't wait to create a beautiful, wonderful dress for the sweet lady that would look like something sophisticated. Once upon a time, a lady visited the shop and said that if she had a daughter, the baby's first dress would be from this place, which seemed like a wonderful choice to her. That person must have been Theon's mother, who died 7 years ago. It seems that every detail of the image and the look of those very eyes are still preserved in my head. The lady must have been a good person, but it all ended sadly. The squirrel says something, only Rutiom, who signed a contract with her, can hear it. They are going to transform Twarish, doing everything as it should be. The hair is already like an addition to the image, but the dress will be chosen in such a way that people around will open their mouths. Everyone was waiting for the moment when Madame Trapet's masterpiece for the girl was completed. She went into the dressing room to try on the dress, and then timidly went out into the world. As soon as everyone gathered sees the beauty, they really open their mouths. The woman screams about the incredible and perfect, which she has probably never seen before. The muse has come to make you smile, but you shouldn't stop at just one outfit, because she has many more options to try on. Anna takes a stack of beautiful clothes. They will choose the best and send them to the palace so that they don't have to drag them around with them. This way, it will be much easier for everyone to live. The girl sank down on the sofa and lowered her head. She was already starting to get bored. Jed asked if the little girl was tired. The maid was sometimes too hard to stop. She had already seen those sparkling eyes. The beauty cannot stop, just like the saleswoman. The blonde does not want to say anything against. She is happy that she is receiving kind words in her direction, perhaps for the first time in her life. The conversation turns to the young gentleman. It seems they have already become friends after reading. They still haven't seen each other, so the question is difficult. It turns out that the boy is currently being punished. The little girl doesn't understand why her brother hates people so much. The knight wonders how this happened, because it's not true, after all. You can't forget something like that. He himself told the truth. The brunette chuckles. Firstly, the young man really doesn't like people, but it's not that he doesn't like his sister specifically. This applies to absolutely everyone. Perhaps it's the smell, if you remember. He asks the girl to wash herself. The young man is the most talented person in the duchy. He is very sensitive to smells and tastes. The girl didn't think it smelled so bad. Of course, in the past, the maids had always insulted her, but she wanted to believe that it wasn't so, and that it was the problem of those people. There was a loud sound, and then Anna ran through the door, with traces of blood that soaked her clothes, and again these birds dispersed, causing problems. The girl notices the spots, but she is assured that the maid is fine when she was little. She also did similar things, and no one is surprised by anything anymore. The problem is that Trapet was kidnapped, and it is not clear what to do next. There are not many options. She could have been kidnapped by the henchmen of Duke Serdia. The squirrel is growing together. Why did this family need it? The saleswoman, or rather assistant, says that it is true this time the Duke has another matter called fur coat. She bows her head, asking for forgiveness. The girl thinks she remembers that Serdia's ability is to transform into animals, namely wolves. It must be somehow connected. Wolves are now associated only with the new family. Python laughs, saying that people have extremely low self-esteem, but falls silent because she sensed the aura of another star. One of the 4 great ones is nearby. Rather, you need to go forward along the street. So as not to lose your way, the tracks are still fresh. This will help. The blonde doesn't understand how they got out of the dream without permission. But it seems that this is not the main thing. Python did something. She controls the human mind. Now the beauty is like a stone on the side of the road. If she disappears, the servants will not notice anything. They talk about something mentioning that they need to take the lady back to the estate. They need to quickly find the 4th star. The duo breaks away and runs forward along the street. Looking at every shop, the aura is a little lost in the crowd. Now it will be more difficult. Python tries not to show his emotions, but it's even more difficult. Others cannot be awakened. This is rule number 1, and if something happens, it's most likely the end. The little girl decided not to waste a single extra second. She would lend her subordinate her powers, because in the human world, it is difficult to use abilities to the fullest. There is no need to worry. There is nothing complicated. Tuarish will cope with it with flying colors. Rudium imagined that she was looking for a star and pointed her finger towards the arch. The girl stops because there are wolves at the very beginning of the street. She quickly apologizes for accidentally confusing the stars with animals. Squirrel will show how profitable the contract with her is. This is literally the best option. The blonde is asked to break the wheel and then quietly rescue the girl. The power will accumulate in the head again. Just like when the maiden was looking for the star, Python will again transmit the abilities. And in the head, there should be an image of the wheel exploding. Closing her eyes and trying to concentrate, the little girl sees how the fire begins to light. The beast tries to stop her, but she does not hear anything because of the ball of consciousness in which she is. The heroine hides behind the corner. Because she accidentally blew up the cart, she is worried because she did not want to do anything other than damage the wheel. The star itself was scared too. The girl absorbed more power than it offered. She may be talented, but she can't possibly use her power so confidently, and it's hard to say what else she's capable of. The roar of a wolf is heard behind them. They were discovered, not giving them time to escape, despite the fact that the heroine blew up the carriage. She continues to be afraid of something. Suddenly, it became noticeably cold ice formed around a boy steps forward. It is obvious that he is from the Gebetsmann family. You can even tell by the way the boy looks. The girl doesn't understand what to do, whether to hide or wait. Robenhalf looks around. He's figured everything out. Only Tuarish is left. Stretching her hand forward, the beauty asks not to do anything. She does not want anyone to be hurt. So she tries with all her might to convince, even if it is difficult. Python screams that there is no point in bowing down and begging for mercy. Only weaklings do that, but she is shut up. Rodvik asks to solve everything with words without force. Already opening her mouth, the heroine shuts up because someone grabs her from behind. It turns out that the Duke has appeared to take his daughter home. The baby was gone for a long time. The father went to the boutique to check on her. He turns to Robenhalf because he was supposed to return home. The guy pretends he doesn't know, but still gives in. Dad has some business. He had to go back alone. It seems the Duke's designer was recently kidnapped. The hero was just trying to help and didn't expect any problems. Tuarish thought they were going to freeze her, but it turned out she was very wrong. The conversation is interrupted by shouts, and Anna hurries to the assembled group, stretching out her hands to the young lady and anxiously asking why she ran so far away. The trapeze can be left to Jed. He will figure everything out himself. The blonde looks at the floor. She noticed that, for the first time, she did not feel pain when she used force. Before her is the heir of the Gebetsmann family, and if this is really his person, then in her past life, Tuarish saw him in the dungeon. There can be no mistake. Because they have already met, the feeling of a strange outcome remains inside the heart, without saying goodbye. The girl turns away, not allowing the boy to even open his mouth. Already in the evening, Jed reported on the current situation. Fortunately, the negotiations between Trepet and Serdia were successful. Duke Gebetsmann was with them, and Rodvik also made a serious warning. Of course that family loves wolves, but it's not that bad. Because of the issue with the heir, they care a lot about their honor. They understand that there is only one way out, and they have to be careful. This time, it wasn't about the older son that was mentioned earlier. The man heard that the younger son's ability had recently been revealed, which was a shock. They seem like they'll get along. Theon is incredibly talented, and Tuarish is a real sweetheart. Nothing will happen if they try to spend more time with them. The Duke changes the subject, asking why no one protected his daughter. The knight apologizes, but in fact, he did nothing but, on the contrary, he tried to constantly take care. The beauty is simply a genius, and hides better than any professional killer, which makes it clear that she has well-developed abilities. She is uneducated, but reads well. If the child goes to the Imperial Academy in a couple of years, he will definitely take the highest place in the ranking, eliminating all opponents. By that time, the lady will be a real beauty, and judging by the way they will line up, Rodvik thinks that everything will be fine with her, but he is not sure whether she will live to see that time. Theon received a letter from Robenhalf, who asks if there is a large tower in the duchy. It seems that his eardrums almost burst from the ringing. Each time the new message is even more stupid than the previous one. Last time, the guy said that he found a puppy near the boutique. Something must have happened between him and Tuarish. He needs to find her and ask her to be careful. The young man meets the dog in the corridor and is about to say something, but she covers her mouth with her hands and quickly runs away into the distance. She does not intend to stay nearby. The girl thought that her brother had already left, but in the end, he came out from behind the corner and did not let the heroine leave because he began to ask why she was avoiding him so much. Still trying not to open her mouth too much, the beauty says that it has already been put into her head that she stinks. The young man leans closer because he does not hear anything at all. Jed told the lady that his brother was sensitive to smells, and he himself said that she constantly stunk. Now she was afraid that she was hated for this very reason. The hero asks when he ever said such a thing, but soon realizes that it is true. Many things were done in the past. She really did not smell as she should, but that was before. If you think about it, Theon can't say why the girl stopped smelling. Nothing comes from her. And this even makes him a little wary. It's not clear where this is leading. All living creatures have their own smell. Of course, it is not as disgusting as some people think, but it is so elusive that no one can hear the notes of the people around them. The man hates bad breath, and everyone around him always holds their breath when he passes. He doesn't like those who walk around and feel sorry for him, and not the best rumors are spreading around. After his mother's death, everyone started to treat the guy too carefully, and this also irritates him a lot. There are memories of how he cried, hoping that he could save her. The people around were weak. His mother died from pregnancy. Theon thought that he would not let anyone else near him because the event left dark marks on his heart. The child nearby is too strange. There is no smell, and her presence is not even annoying. If this continues, it will not end in the best light. The young man freezes, but then hits the girl on the forehead, doing it a little lightly. Jumping back, the little girl quietly asks what she did to deserve this, and grabs her head with her hands. According to her brother, she looked so stupid that her hands started itching. Turning around to leave, the young man asks her not to worry so much. The lady will never grow up anyway, and there is no point in behaving like this. A smile appears on his face, almost imperceptibly, causing the young man to blush. In fact, having a younger sister is not so bad. They will most likely be able to get along together peacefully. The next morning, the girl has her first etiquette lesson. She opens the book, but immediately hears Python's voice, who does not understand why all this needs to be learned. The servant had already said that if a member of the Rodvik family started eating with their feet, no one would say anything, because everyone respected the Duke and wanted to live a happy long life. The girl does not agree because she knows when she will leave the estate and understands the importance of preparing for this event. The squirrel has seen different people, but believes that the owner is unique. The little girl has the monstrous power to draw upon the powers of the stars and use it at her own discretion, adjusting the effect despite everything. She does not want to reveal the fact that she has rudium. The animal asks to stop with all this and finally listen to him, because there is definitely something to say. The heroine has a chance to never feel any pain again. If people find out about the beauty's power, she will become popular and rich. The little girl refuses. Freedom is more important to her, and she has no plans to exchange it for anything else. Remembering the past is especially painful for the girl. If she reveals her power, she will actually get a lot of problems. Python does not know this because she was never in her place. Humans are primitive creatures. They will try to take over the child's abilities and do everything to make her life worthless so that this never happens. The Duke decided to visit the class. The guy went inside the room because when he passed by, he heard his daughter's voice. It's never too late to check what she's doing. The man says that everything is fine, but a dark aura is thickening around him. He himself realized that the condition is worsening after the last time he used the power. The little girl turns to Python, asking how long the boy has left to live. She can't say for sure, maybe about 2 or 3 years. But no more than that. He has a rather weak body. He was just unlucky to be born like that. Tuarish distracts from conversations with his words about how Madame Michel values persistence in studies. At this rate, the beauty will go very far and reach the heights. I want to say something, but my mouth just won't open. The main thing is rest and, of course, healthy sleep. The young man wishes me a good day and productive studies. The Duke truly considers the heroine his daughter. They will never become family, but I would like him to feel this love, at least a little. Blake will be saved. Jed noticed that the young master had been very quiet lately, although he used to go on a hunger strike or shout at every little thing, causing everyone around him to worry. It can already be said that Tuarish had such a positive influence on the boy. Apparently, the boy feels responsible as an older brother and tries to behave appropriately. The topic gradually changes. The knight asks if the master will take part in the annual hunt, in which the four great families of the empire participate. Just recently, the estate was visited by Gibbetsman, who just arrived to discuss the future event. It seems the time has come to make a decision before it is too late. The Duke thought about it. He was going to take his daughter with him to the festival, but he was told that it would be better to leave the child at the estate and not drag her around as a trophy. A princess who was a commoner has no right to just show up at a festival of nobles. It's like throwing a fish to cats to be torn apart. It won't end well. The man doesn't know what Blake was thinking when he adopted the blonde, but if he wants to make her a noble person, it's better to keep her in the estate away from everyone else. The Duke may not live to see her come of age. In fact, Gibbetsman was right and right away in all the details. As Jed said, she could be sent to the Royal Academy when she grew up. Then she wouldn't be locked up all her life. The conversation was interrupted a little, because the door opened, and Tuarish appeared there with a book in her hands. She asks to read her a book, because it is the best before bed. Of course the Duke agrees. He almost immediately orders Jed to get back to work. The guy chuckles. He also wanted to enjoy family time, but it seems no one invites him. As soon as the door closed, the young man picked up the beauty in his arms and smiled. The idol could not be disturbed, considering that the father wanted to be the one to put his daughter to bed. Half an hour later, it was all over. The girl jumped off the chair and said that she would come again tomorrow. The man offered to read longer, but she understands that he still has his own work. The door closed, and the heroine began to jump for joy. She was promised that tomorrow they would be together longer, but initially she had a completely different goal. While the young man was reading the story, Rudiam managed to cleanse his body at least a little if he continued in this spirit. Dad would recover very soon. He would definitely get better. As she turns the corner, the heroine almost jumps up in fright because her brother is there, frowning, asking why she is so happy. The girl asked her father to read. He is a busy man, and it was not worth distracting him, even if in the end she did it anyway. Theon claims that he reads us much better last time. He did not do so badly. The blonde reminds him that her brother was wrong almost all the time, but he brushes it off, saying that if the Duchess loves books so much, she should follow her to a wonderful place. The librarian met the children at the entrance and smiled welcomingly. If they had any questions, they could ask them to get answers and figure things out faster. The little girl quietly says hello in response, trying not to stutter at all. Although it seems almost impossible, the Duke asks to show his sister children's publications, and he himself goes to study. The girl thought that he would read with her, but it seems she was wrong. The guy probably wants to be close, but the heir has many activities that cannot be missed. It is strange that the hero said that his father is busy, although he himself does not have a free minute. Despite his activities, the hero does not allow the girl to get bored even for a minute. The librarian offers to show the premises. The girl can also create something similar, because there are 7 rooms here. The members of the Rodvik family have the right to own their own department. The young gentleman had just gone to his room. Many rooms were still empty, so it would not be easy to make a choice. But if he chose now, he would be able to use the library for all the following years. Python immediately shows interest, wagging her tail and pointing to the 3rd room, almost begging the lady to choose it. An interesting power emanates from that place. There are many books inside the room. The brunette says that this place was owned by a former master, but this means that there will be no children's books that could be suitable for the young lady. The woman promises to wait outside while the child simply looks around. The maiden takes the first book and sees how the star tries to rest against something hard, as if a passage could be opened there. There was a mirror on top which almost fell and broke. The beauty managed to grab the thing and shame her friend for behaving like that. It seems that this is exactly what she wanted. There was a glowing sphere on the floor, which rolled somewhere forward. It almost disappeared, but they managed to catch it. The girl sits down next to it to ask what was going on. In front of the duo is a fragment of a star containing a special power. It was from it that a strange aura emanated, which could not be found out about earlier. Python is glad that she found the source. The star that dies turns to stone. It has already been said that each one loses its powers when it enters the world of people completely unexplored and different from another dimension. Fragments arouse people's curiosity. They even lose the ability to maintain self-control, regardless of strength. Each has a different kind of energy. If you come across a fragment of a star, you can use its abilities. Squirrel suggests breaking everything to get to the truth. But the Duchess refuses. They will have problems if they do something wrong. What is broken will have to be restored, but it will be difficult. The animal only has destructive abilities, so something like this will be difficult. The blonde no longer wants to listen to anything, because if they are caught, it will be the final end for everyone. The conversation is finally over. There is no way to convince her, and there is no point in trying. There is no need to try. The blonde is embarrassed. She was too rude, and perhaps the woman is angry. The squirrel lies on the floor, looking at the ball, which is still on the floor in the container. The girl does not understand who was talking then, but then the voice from the mirror is heard again. In the reflection, there is a boy with blonde hair. The little girl is jumping and screaming in horror. She dropped the thing on the ground and realized that the fragments flew in different directions. Theon yawns a little. He is too tired, but he has finished all his studying. The brunette finished everything quickly today. He needs to take his sister back to the room. Entering the library and meeting a woman, he asks where Twarish is. She said that she wants to look at the third room, where she reads some books. In the former Duke's place of residence, there is nothing to do and nothing to play with. The young man climbs the stairs and meets a beauty who flies into him and screams that there is a ghost there. The guy who picked up the mirror from the other side sadly lowers his head. He realized that, as he initially thought, no one would hear him, and no one would help save him from everything that was happening in his own house. The maid opens the door. She has a tray of food in her hands. It seems that the boy went into that room again. Although I remember that the Duke repeatedly said that one should not touch the things of the former mistress. The hero lowers his head. His voice is lost, but in fact he just misses his mother very much. The woman doesn't care. She asks if the Duke has taken his medicine. He asks if he can refuse it today, because he feels better. For some reason, the young man is not surprised that he is being refused. The man asked to take medication every day. He cannot be disobeyed, and therefore no one has the right to refuse. The blonde had long ago noticed that the more pills he took, the worse he felt. The young man did not want to die, but in the end, it seemed that this was what would happen. The hero remembers how he sat in the room and looked at the portrait of his mother. He loved this activity, because at least something allowed him to think that she was nearby. The voices of two people were heard from the mirror. Getting up and approaching the boy decided to check if there really were people there, and if they could hear his voice. He listened for a few more minutes to the dialogue about destructive forces and more. After the Duke asked if he could be heard, a scream was heard, and immediately everything disappeared. It seems there was a girl there. I hope they will talk at least once more in the future. The blonde is torn from his thoughts because the maid is still standing in front of him, waiting for the boy to drink the medicine. He took the bottle and almost immediately felt dizzy. The carriage goes to the city. Theon says that his sister is not very well. First he asked if the little one wanted to go to the hunting festival, and she said that she had a cold and would stay at home. The maiden only started behaving this way when she found out that the royal family would be there. The Duke was not going to take the child with him anyway, so as not to do her a disservice. After the commoner was brought home, Theon changed a little. It seems he really liked her. She is better than the others, because before that, everyone did nothing but whine. His health also became better. The boy speaks like an adult. He has changed and now behaves differently. Tarish has changed the family a lot, for which we can only thank. Gibbetsman was the first to meet Rodvik near the tents. It seems the Duke listened and decided not to take the child with him because her safety comes first. The young man has nothing to do with it, but everyone around is interested in where his adopted daughter is. The blonde heard that his friend is aiming for the throne because he wants to get more attention, and that is the reason he takes new children. Condemnation is inevitable. In any case, it is too difficult given all the problems in society. Inheritance no longer has such a big meaning. The only thing that is important is that children are understood and recognized. Gibbetsman smiles, saying that he has a caring father in front of him. In fact, he is not the only one with problems in the family. Serdia also did not take his son with him, leaving him in the estate. It is already known that the elder brother's strength restrains the younger one. that he inherited the family's abilities. This is the right direction, but hardly anyone will believe that the younger one got sick. Gerver also decided to leave the child at home without arguing this in public and pretending that it didn't mean anything. Gibbetsman also heard about this news when he arrived at the scene. The boy's abilities were revealed a couple of years ago. It's strange that he wasn't taken to the official meeting. The man constantly acts strangely. So there aren't many questions. Recently, a strange rumor has been circulating, which is even worse than all the others. The Duke often goes to the slave market and walks there for hours, as if trying to find someone, and can't find anyone. Every day, the young man uses his powers. The eye of wisdom helps him see the truth, but no one knows who he is looking for. Before that, they said that he does not often use his abilities in order to live longer. One of the families found out that Gerver was looking for Rudium. The Duke frowned. He knew that there was not a single representative of the force left. Gibbetsman also thought so, but their friend had a slightly different opinions. The man points forward. He noticed that there was a crowd of people there, and the brunette himself grabbed someone by the hand. It seems that that person is Theon, who is trying to escape, but they are not letting him go. The screams are too loud. The guy is outraged by the fact that the boy has something with energy. He probably found that very thing. It is impossible to believe that he wasn't even looking for anything. The words sound more like nonsense. Blake appeared behind him, asking in an angry voice what the Duke was doing. 3 years ago, he had warned him not to touch his son. The brunette noticed too late that the energy around the enemy had not disappeared. It was only the baby. The conversation was interrupted because a man on a horse appeared. He asks what happened. The magnificent event that was planned to unite the Dukes was almost destroyed. Driving forward, the hero reminds of the desire to spend everything in peace and quiet because of what happened. He removes the Rodvik and Gerver family from participating in the hunt. This will be the best option. The squirrel lies unconscious on the bed. A cold cloth is applied to its head to bring down the temperature. Jed asks the animal to come to its senses so that the lady does not worry even more. The baby jumped up on the bed and started jumping. It seems she didn't like the nickname, but that only shows how smart she is. Until she is given a name, she will remain a nut. It is clear from Python's face that she wants a new name. The star asked not to tell about her name. She also said that she knows the location of the person, that if she says the name, if everyone finds out, there will be problems. There are too many thoughts in my head. It is not clear which option to choose, but leaving the nut is definitely not worth it. It will not end well. The pecan option was the one the duo liked the most. Animals like this have a slight fever, so don't worry. Jed asks to call him if something happens for now. He has his own things to do. Python is also lying on the bed without any feelings. It is too hard for her to move. She has no temperature, but the animal has been in the human world too long to feel better. In order for the condition to improve, it is necessary to return to the forest of monsters. After a while, they were there. The animal lies on the ground and breathes in the air. After everything she has experienced, she finally feels alive. The star said that she would feel better as soon as she exhaled the forest air. It seems that the aura is more favorable near the lake. Python dives into the water. To swim a little, in 10 minutes, they will return back to the castle. Thanks to the beauty's abilities, no one noticed that they were missing, but it is not clear what awaits them next. They will have to move to the victorious end and return. The girl was distracted from her conversation with her friend because she noticed an animal lying on the ground, its body enveloped in energy, which was gradually thickening. The creature is badly wounded. The squirrel can help, but says that there is no point in this. If there is an open wound on the body, even cleaning by force will not help, and it will simply die. The blonde doesn't want to listen to anything. She understands what this pain in the body is, and therefore she can't just throw the fox on the ground. She kneels down to hug the animal. Jed woke up at 4 a.m. since the owner was not in the estate. He had to go to patrol the crabs since there was no one to patrol the territory. The guy walked one circle and realized that it was time to go back. But then, in the distance, he could see the lady. She couldn't walk completely alone at such an early hour. The baby apologizes. Pagan begged to go outside for a walk, so it was impossible to refuse if the squirrel disturbed her sleep. Maybe it would be better to send her to live on the farm, But again, Turish herself does not like this option. I was wondering what the matter was, because everyone says that animals are much smarter than people, which is quite logical in some respects. The brunette decided to go check the bushes, because he heard some strange sounds he had made around earlier, and hadn't found anything. Some new animal must have appeared. A wolf cub appeared in the distance, the same one that he had already met in the forest. Rodvik doesn't understand what to do with him, but serious wounds cannot be ignored. The baby can be taken to a doctor to be cured for Jed. This is madness because the animal is clearly from the Serdian clan, judging by how young the wolf is. It is the second son of the Duke, whose abilities have manifested themselves recently. If the child is taken away and something happens to him, all the blame will be placed on the Rodvik family. But the Duchess looks at him with two sweet eyes and almost begs to take him with them. Inside himself, the hero asked the gentleman for forgiveness for what he was about to do. But in reality, he hoped that everything would end well, and the man would not even find out anything. The coronation takes place after the hunt. The glory of this year's victory shines over Serdia's head. The man sits down and accepts praise thanks to his majesty. Gibbet's man pushes Theon. If something similar to a showdown had not happened, as Rodvik would have usually won, the brunette would not care for the victory. They give several precious stones that can be bought for money. There are also things that cannot be purchased. For example, the boy gives a dessert prepared personally by the emperor's chef. The boy heard that this year it will be cookies that Twarish would like. Theon wondered why the bastard was getting on his nerves all day. But it turned out to be simpler. He wanted to talk about the dog since he was clearly interested in her. The hero continues to press. He says that you need to think carefully. The guy's sister was previously a commoner. She probably has never eaten such delicious sweets. In his head, the man imagines how the little girl will thank him for the food. He promises that he will bring cookies to Derkadion's estate by any means necessary. But the boy is no longer around. He ran away. Only a few days have passed. The girl checks the fox, hoping that he has gotten better. The doctor smiles, all thanks to the fact that the lady visited him every day and gave him love and care. The doctor says goodbye to the young lady. It's time for him to get back to work, but if there are any health problems, he needs to call for help. The girl smiles. She gently strokes the animal. Thanks to regular cleansing, the amount of energy has significantly decreased, almost even disappeared. The baby woke up. He began to lick the hands of his savior from memories of a past life. The lady knows that the Serdia and Rodvik families do not get along with each other. The Duke would have caused a stir if he had found out that his wounded son was in the enemy's estate. Luckily, it seems that neither the doctors nor Jed know that this is an unusual wolf, and the man, as soon as his paw heals, needs to be released back into the wild. He will find his way home on his own. Blake's voice is heard. He seems to have already returned. He thought he could smell an animal from the room, but first he needs to check everything again. The little girl picked up the puppy and said that he was wounded. Her insides were clenched. She was worried because she didn't think that her father would return so quickly. It's scary to think what will happen if he finds out that the animal is a member of the Serdia clan. The brunette says nothing and gently places his hand on his daughter's head. His voice soft as he asks if she wants to keep the animal as a new pet. The child shakes his head. She brought him because he was badly injured. As soon as the wolf recovers, he will be released outside so that he can return to his family. There was relief inside because it seemed the Duke had not realized that the man in front of him was Serdia's youngest son, and that was exactly what they would do to ensure that everything ended well. In fact, Blake thought that Rish took the baby because she didn't think he was a werewolf. And it's better to keep something like that a secret, the guy asks to go with him, because he brought gifts. Now is not the time for laughter, although the mood has normalized a little. Even Python noticed that the energy around the Duke has become even thicker. The aura of a dark color goes inside. The Virgo opens her mouth as soon as they are in the room in front of her. There is a bunch of gifts that the man bought. For the first time, he decided that it was worth choosing the best, showing his love. The blonde hurries to open each of them, while the squirrel tries to look inside too, wondering if there is something for her too. Maybe there will be an assortment of nuts in one of the boxes. This man is actually a good father, although he doesn't seem too kind. Python still doesn't understand what happened on the hunt, that his energy became denser. The hunt guide said that the man must use his powers, just in case he was cleansed before leaving. But now it has become even worse. Something more effective must be thought up. Theon entered the room, who by the way also bought some kind of gift that he chose himself. A plush puppy flies into the beauty's hands, and a grin freezes on her face. The squirrel is angrier than his owner. The boy is too sarcastic, as if he is trying to get into trouble. The girl is trying to calm down. She has no reason to argue with a 9-year-old child. It's not that bad, because the brunette at least considers his sister as family. The father immediately stopped the guy. You can't treat people like that a person loves, and who are important to him. The girl thanked her brother, and he couldn't even find the words, because he didn't expect it. Jed followed the master. He wanted to know if they would really leave the wolf cub in the castle. They have a converted Serdia left in the estate. He needs to be returned. Thank God that everything will end. They just dealt with Trapette. The problem should not return. The Duke asks to send a man to the family, without unnecessary noise, to tell them to take the second son. We'll have to act covertly, so that the eldest doesn't find out anything the servant doesn't understand, if it's right to do this, because it means taking a risk. They might think that Rodvik kidnapped the wolf. The man asks not to worry. It is clear that it would be difficult if not for the victory in the hunting festival. Serdia is in a good mood. Red is probably just laughing at the situation, because he is a rather simple person. Duke Gerver is a different matter. He has been quiet for too long, and is now interested in Theon. The man repeatedly said that he wanted to know where the abilities of people with a special gift end, but in this case, he does not need Rodvik. Every time the hero's golden eyes sparkle when he looks at his master, his body shivers from an unpleasant feeling that remains in the subcortex of his consciousness. The brunette himself does not know what is hidden and what fuels Gerver's interest, so he orders more guards to be assigned to Theon and Tuarish. Even if the Duke's life will soon end, he will not allow anyone to harm his children. The puppy was doing much better in the morning. Rish found him in a good mood, which made her smile. She brought him some food that she took from the kitchen. The girl asks him not to hurry with the food, so as not to choke, but he, not listening at all, continues to gobble it up. Python, sitting next to him, asks if this is really the person who turned into him. She can't believe that he was raised like that in his family. One of the knights runs into the room, dragging his ally on himself. He was wounded during training, and it seems that this is not something simple, but a serious injury that requires treatment. First, the man is asked to lie down on the couch. One of these knights is someone familiar. It is quite difficult to say what exactly is happening. The squirrel feels something and tries to understand what it is, but nothing works. She will remain on the shoulder of her owner. The doctor asks the lady for forgiveness for not being able to talk to her. Yet a patient has appeared in serious condition. He needs to go get some medicinal herbs. The girl promises that she will be here and wait as long as necessary. The knight is taken away too, because a lot of things will be needed for the treatment, which are difficult to carry when you only have 2 hands. The guy doesn't even have time to agree. As he is pushed out, business cannot wait. The girl does not sit still, but on the contrary, gets out of bed and goes behind the screen. It seems that the patient is too seriously injured. The doctor has never been seen so excited before. But now everything is changed, because he has to help the person. There is no time for talking. Now the lady needs to urgently see who has entered, because something is wrong in the air. The curtain is pulled back, and the same knight appears, who smiles, saying that they finally saw each other. He was waiting for this meeting. In front of them stands one of the stars, the energy of which Python felt only recently, and so diligently tried to find. There are not many options left. They will have to run away, because with current abilities, it will be problematic to fight. The man blocked Rutium's way. The door was locked. His sweet voice asked. Not to worry, he just wanted to ask a few questions. The man didn't understand why only the son of the Rodvik family was purified. It seemed there wasn't enough energy to save the father, either. Because the contract was only with 1 star, the beauty freezes because in front of her is the same gaze that haunted her in her past life. The wolf instantly rushes forward and bites the man on the hand so that he stops holding the baby by the chin, not allowing her to turn away somewhere to the side. Screams are heard throughout the room. Pecan attacks the man first, throwing him aside. She orders him to shut up and leave her treaty partner alone. It was with her that they made the agreement, so there is no point in trying it. Will all be pointless over and over again. Lowering his head, the star begins to laugh fitfully. He didn't know that Python was here too. And by the way, he looks very funny. The nickname God of War has lost its meaning, given the appearance that the man has acquired. Now he can officially be laughed at. No matter how the girl looks, very soon the person will meet with a fist. The brunette laughs even more. It seems that a soft paw will not change anything. But in Python's opinion, this is too offensive, and she promises that something terrible will happen. Now she is going to attack. The woman orders Tuarish to take the wolf cub and run as far as possible if the star in human form uses its abilities. It is reflected on her body. Besides, the goddess is now in the form of a squirrel, so it will be much more difficult for her than it might seem. The girl is not going to run away. The man also retreats, but continues to smile, judging by how quickly Pagan moves the word rat. She has already managed to get used to this new body. Of course, the moment cannot be missed, because the little girl chuckles. She thought that being a rat is a distinctive feature of the rival. The guy starts to gather strength in his hands. He was glad to see Python after so many years. They finally saw each other, and maybe it was good, but it was time to deal with her. The squirrel steps back. She can no longer fight in this form. The little girl doesn't understand why nothing happened. She closed her eyes, preparing for something terrible, and when she opened them, the body was lying on the other side of the room because it was thrown away by the owner, ordering not to touch her partner, who is important to her. It was finally time to leave, grabbing both animals. The girl rushes forward, listening to Python's screams. She told her to run away even earlier, but the blonde acted quite recklessly. She still has reasons why she did it this way. She wanted to save the girl. The man had already jumped up and was running behind, shouting at Rutioma to stop. They still had many different options that they would have to discuss at the right moment. Jed appeared, pointing his blade at Philip. He didn't understand why the knight was bothering their mistress. It's lucky that someone came to help. Otherwise, the situation could have ended more tragically. The body falls to the ground, and the eyes close. Pekin immediately answers the questions. The man can no longer control the guy because he left consciousness and heart. On the other side of the ball, Gerver screams and slams his hands on the table. He is angry at life and at himself because he cannot believe that Rodvik's adopted daughter became Rutium. Her power is exactly what he had to search for every day for several years in a row. The voice lowers. The stranger says that all this does not concern him, no matter what. Everything has become complicated, and an unexpected obstacle has appeared, so the young man is left alone with his affairs. No one will help him. The last thing the Duke asks is to tell him if the future he saw is true, the future where he managed to find the girl at the slave market. The vision almost came true, but of course the stranger does not specify what exactly he is talking about. The brunette is shaking. It is difficult for him to restrain himself. A half-roar bursts out of his chest, which can be heard throughout the room. He screams, promising that he will kill everyone who deserves it. The son standing behind the door freezes, because for the first time, he sees his father so angry and so upset by the situation. The boy realized that it was better not to be seen, and was about to leave, but nothing came of it. Because the door creaked a little, forcing him to attract attention, the man ran to the guy and, grabbing his hands, asked why he needed to eavesdrop. The words that nothing could be heard do not even seem true. The eyes light up, which means that the forces come into use, and moments of how everything happened scroll before the consciousness. The son should have known what would happen if he lied to his father. He gets hit one after another. There was no one outside, but a second later, a servant appeared, called by the Duke himself. He throws the young man back, ordering him to be locked in the room and not given anything to eat. He doesn't care how long it takes. Listening to Ian Duane's crying is disgusting, and his words, sorry, are even worse. The blonde is going to be locked in a storage room, not even in his room, just because he is constantly looking for his dead mother. He should have already figured out that it is his father who is the main one in this family and estate, and not him, the one who still hasn't grown up. Pekan talks about control over the body, which is a special skill of Haikenki. She met many with such features in this case. This knight named Philip is not at all guilty because he did nothing wrong. His body was used. No one will believe the duo, so it is unlikely that they will be able to free the guy. Now is not the time to think about other people. He tried to kill the girl, And after everything that happened, his head should be filled with something else, or rather, new plans. Rudium doesn't understand why he needs her. It's completely illogical, but only for her. The man probably wanted to make a contract with the maiden in order to finally get into the human world, judging by the fact that he was only able to take control of the body for a short time. His body is still in the grave. The man was most likely going to take over the world of people. So far, this is the only version of what is happening. The world of stars is called a grave, because there was nothing there except death. Everything there is completely different than in the place where they are now, where there is a lot of light power. For one reason, the four great stars decided to destroy the boundary between the grave and the human world. Their wishes were only for themselves. But the whole idea was too dangerous, because such a thing could lead to the complete destruction of the world, which would be mired in darkness. The idea could have been stopped. It wasn't that difficult because only 4 people took part. But in the end, they couldn't come to an agreement, and they all went together to the world of people, which is still living its own life for now. The girl will have to escape from the mansion where she currently lives. Hikenka will definitely return, because now he knows where the heroine lives. It will not be difficult to guess when he will attack, but the worst thing is that it is not clear in what guise. It took some time to formulate her thoughts, and finally the beauty says that she does not want to run away if she is not there. And Hikenka does not get anything he can harm other people who live in the Rodvik estate. They will be bad. Virgo is afraid to imagine that a man will take control over someone, and someone will be in danger in a past life. Agnes was told that with each of her escapes, the maids will die one after another until they run out in number. The little girl doesn't want anyone to suffer because of her. Again, Python is also a great star, which means she can sense the presence of others of her kind. She can sense Hikenku the next time he's somewhere nearby. The lady still chose the path, that although not the easiest is still the best. The heroine will not run away while she accumulates her strength. She hopes that the goddess of war can become even stronger than now in order to constantly help. The librarian takes the lady to the part of the library that she wanted to make her own. The woman sorted out all the documents that were there, but the books have not been moved yet, so there is nothing to read. The maids have not even cleaned up, yet the blonde waves it off. Nothing terrible happened. She likes everything as it is. Now this place belongs to Tuarish. She will be able to do whatever her heart desires. Now that there is permission, she must try to extract the star fragment. No matter how difficult this task is, there is no choice left. The blonde sits down on the ground and lowers her hands. She still can't believe that she can do whatever her heart desires. Despite the freedom of action, she doesn't want to destroy more than necessary so as not to spoil the room. It takes very little force to extract the piece. Everything happened in a second. The floor cracked a little, revealing a white glowing sphere, which almost immediately ended up in Peakson's hands. The Duchess herself does not understand what is special about the fragment. Python calmly explains that the stars change colors depending on their properties. White is healing and restoration. If the light was healing, then perhaps a person may develop healing abilities. Then those like Hikenka will be like bugs. The little girl can't wait to see what her mistress's abilities are. She asks to close her eyes and concentrate, like that day when she had to use her powers to blow up that cart. It shouldn't be difficult. After a second, or even a minute, nothing happened. Opening her eyes, the heroine looked around, trying to understand what all this was about. The squirrel quickly figured out what was what, and galloped forward, pointing somewhere on the shelf. In front of them is a mirror, which then shattered into pieces only because of the impact on the floor. It is hard to believe that such a fuss is only because of such a simple object, which is not even a person. He and Pecan have different thoughts on this matter for sure. Sometimes, if you're lucky, a person might have a couple of talents, but the girl doesn't even have the ability to heal, which is weird. The girl nods, but doesn't really listen to the words being said. She remembers that someone was talking to her that time, but today it's quiet. The door suddenly swings open, and the little brother appears on the threshold. He grabs the girl by the hand and says that they urgently need to run somewhere. There will be no explanation, and this becomes clear almost immediately, but they find themselves in the garden. Robinhalf calls Lily and Lotus, 2 beautiful ladies with light pink hair, who run away. It is better not to take them into the estate. They will stay outside so as not to destroy everything that is built and arranged. They can never sit still. Only now did the hero begin to fully realize that he shouldn't have taken the children with him. He had fallen for his mother and grandmother's trick that he couldn't go unless he took his sisters with him. It turned out that it was a cheap trick for little children. Wherever the guy takes Lily and Lotus, they always disgrace him today. He must check everything for sure. Every time, remembering that very day, he hears the ringing of bells in his ears, which remains in the subcortex, not allowing him to forget something is wrong with his health, or he really likes that girl. The little girls distracted him from his thoughts. Again they call for their brother, saying that they found some puppy in the bushes. Gibbetsman had not heard that the Rodviks had a dog, so something was wrong. He has to get up from the bench to check everything again and make sure. For some reason, the sisters immediately want to take the animal for themselves. But it is not so easy being left alone with the wolf. The hero realized that it was a werewolf, or rather Siegbert, whom he knows very well before that the two met at last year's hunting festival, since he was with the Serdia clan. Dropping to one knee, the young man tries to make friends with the dog, but it seems that for now, this will be problematic, because he is not even allowed to finish speaking. Turish runs towards him, holding out her hands to the puppy. It seems that the animal ran away from her while they were walking in the garden. The little animal almost immediately rushes into the arms of its new owner and begins to try to lick her face as soon as it can. The woman asks, in fear, why it went outside. She was quite worried when she did not find it in the doctor's office where she left it to recover. After all the hugs, the girl turns to the guy who stands with his mouth open and his eyes shining. It seems like the trio from the Gibbetsman family. And if so, it would be better for them to stay away because the animal is already being taken back. The boy nods, unable to even connect two words normally. There is that same ringing in his ears again, which makes him shrink. It happened again, near Tuarish. The guy stretches out his hand, intending to stop the beauty, but Theon appears in front of him. His friend can tell him what he was going to tell his sister. He will definitely convey every word. Ian lies on the floor and remembers how his mother once held him in her arms, saying that she loved him very much. Surely at that moment, the hero felt peaceful, protected and special, because all the warmth came only to him alone. The guy woke up. He had a dream that he hadn't seen for a long time. Perhaps the reason was that he fell asleep looking at her portrait. His mother was as beautiful as before, simply wonderful, sitting down to the side and exhaling. He says that it seems that his father feels hatred. One can even notice that this is a completely obvious fact. I sincerely hope that if everything continues, I will be able to get to the same good place as the Duchess. The same voice of the squirrel from the mirror distracts me from sad thoughts. She says something about a wolf, and then suggests starting to study the star fragment that they have again. The boy listens for a little while longer, and then makes it clear that he is still on the other side of the mirror. The squirrel jumps up and down and screams about a ghost that seems to have come back to scare poor people. The partner runs to the girl to ask where she went. The voices seem to have died down again. The guy can't stand it. It's hard for him. He starts shaking slightly. He almost falls to his knees and sobbing begs him not to leave him alone. It's cold and scary in this room, and it's not clear when the next time he'll be able to go outside. Python reported that the baby had golden hair, just like his eyes. Perhaps he was also possessed by Hikenka, or maybe not. The goddess can see the stars and assumes that he simply has special powers, just like the other families. The blonde thought they will be able to see each other again. She wants to hope for this. A ready-made puzzle gradually begins to form in her head, which makes her think the strength and color of the eyes already say a lot. Only one family has such distinctive features. For some reason, the conversation turns to Zig. He will be able to talk once he becomes an ordinary person again with whom everything is normal. The kid heard the girl called Rudium, and if he is not too loyal, he will tell someone, which will lead to terrible consequences in the future. Most of all, the main character is afraid that her father himself will find out about her true powers. She will try in every way to avoid this. She sits down next to Siegbert. In fact, she knows who he is. He probably also knows perfectly well that the Duchess is in front of him. The blonde is not sure that the animal knows what is happening, but his reaction indicates exactly this. So all that remains is to wait until the last minute and believe in the best since the hero knows who she is. It is better to keep it a secret. The secret will be only between the two of them, not counting Python. Siegbert seemed to nod, but immediately after that, he turned and ran around the corner. Somewhere, Rodvik is not sure if they understood each other. The topic was complicated, nothing can be done. All that remains is to believe that everything will work out. Pagan assures that there is nothing to worry about, and if the wolf blurts out too much to someone, they will hit him. Behind, someone gently placed a hand on the girl's shoulder, who, turning around, froze with her mouth open, because in front of her stood a boy of average height with red hair. This was Zig, who, smiling, repeated again that they were friends, because of course he would not tell anyone about what he heard that day. The energy of was still hovering around his body. The girl smiles. This scenario suits her very well, so everything will be fine. They will of course swear to each other to keep secrets, and this will happen right now. The only question that remains for the lady is, where did Siegbert get these clothes that he is wearing now? The boy tore off a piece of the curtain that hung a little further down the hallway. He didn't have much of a choice to go back in a second. Despite the pleasant conversation, it would be better to turn back into a wolf before other people saw anything unnecessary. In the end, it would be more comfortable for both of them. Diva asks to return to the doctor's office and says that she will come to visit him very soon. The condition should improve. She is glad that everything was resolved in such a simple way. There was no need to be so afraid. Thank God nothing else is happening, and it is time to stay for class. Taking just a few steps forward, the beauty freezes, because she hears and feels something. The strangeness does not leave the body, forcing her to shrink a little. Rutium arrived in the dungeon because Hikank woke up again since the heroine came again. Perhaps he wants to make a deal or talk. The squirrel screams that they have already agreed, so it will not be possible to cancel the deal. The goddess of war has turned into an empty head. The man sharply reaches out and takes the beauty's partner closer to himself. It seems that she has completely forgotten that the agreement will be completed when the animal is killed without any regrets. Python screams because some jar with a dark scarlet aura appears in her hands. The baby rushes forward, but she is stopped. There is no need to worry so much, because the animal will not be killed, but simply the soul will be pulled out. This is not just a glass, but a powerful tool that allows you to break the connection with this world. From the moment of imprisonment, the Duchess will no longer be able to use the powers of her friend. The body torn away from this dimension gradually loses its abilities and plunges into a sleep that can last even 100 years, and nothing will change if the precious star wants to be saved. Tuarish must obey. The girl must decide for herself whether she wants to save herself, her friends, and also those who are most important, her father and brother, who also deserve better. The lady does not understand what he is talking about, but horror is reflected on her face when she sees Hikank bring the bottle to his mouth. Swallowing Python, the hero licks his lips but says that he doesn't need it right away. He has only 3 conditions. If the girl obeys, then he won't even go near the Rodwick estate. It's not interesting at all. It just happened to be there. Firstly, the man wants the owner of the body to be freed, and preferably as soon as possible, and not forced to wait longer. The innocent knight should not die. The second condition is the revival of Eondwain Gerver. The heroine herself knows the future, so she probably understands how to do this. The Duchess cannot deny that she knows this man, because it is true she looks straight at Python's body for the last time, which lies in her arms, without any remaining strength. Almost immediately, the lady promises that she will do everything in her power to fulfill the conditions. It seems that a deal has already been made, but the last thing remains. The only thing the man still wants is for the little girl to enter the Imperial Academy. He doesn't even think that this is too much, because in his understanding, it is something almost supernatural entering into the rhythm. Going outside, Rish examines the body of the goddess. She is so worried that she feels bad. It is not clear what to do if the baby suddenly cannot wake up. A familiar voice is heard in the distance. The father does not understand that his daughter forgot herself in the garden and alone without protection. The girl can no longer restrain herself and runs to hug her father, whom she misses incredibly much. She feels so bad that no one can provide comfort and help. Just one hug makes her feel a little unpleasant. Energy envelops her body a little, making her shake. At this rate, nothing will come of it, and the Duke will live only 2 years at most. The little girl wants to be useful and do something, but does not understand at all where she should start. She could try to cleanse without Python, but then she will again have to experience the terrible pain spreading throughout her body. In her head, the child asks her father for forgiveness, although in reality, there are too many emotions inside her. Now it's about Philip. The knight just wanted to help her that day. A stranger burst into the office, and he came because he wanted to check on Tuarish's condition. The girl asks to free the man who is innocent. She never wanted to hurt another person. The brunette wants to object, but the daughter insistently asks to believe her. This is perhaps the first request, and it would be good to fulfill it. As a father, the hero will believe his children, no matter how difficult it may be. The little girl tries to hold back her tears and thanks Blake, who gently strokes her head. Everything will end much better for them than expected. Several days passed. They, of course, dragged on unbearably long, which even made her feel a little bored. The lady was looking at that very mirror. Apparently, last time the animal saw in the reflection a boy named Iandvain, with whom the main character had not yet quite managed to get to know. At first, the blonde decides to talk to understand how to help him. She doesn't know how to use a mirror, and this complicates the task considerably. She has to shake the thing, and now it seems she finally managed to see something new. A weak voice asks, not to leave and not to leave him alone. In this terrible place, such words from the mouth of a child sound especially sad sitting closer. The Duchess says that she is nearby, and it seems that the person on the other side did not expect that someone would hear and understand him. It would be easier to see each other. Reflections would help to see emotions, and not only, but not a single mistake can be made. Ian can guess that Rudium is in front of him because he also has an all-seeing eye. The girl timidly speaks about her desire not to show her face. The boy is so lonely that he protests when asked if he wants to talk like that. The blonde is happy that he will be able to talk to at least someone other than his own consciousness, which has recently been filled with unnecessary thoughts that lead nowhere. The hero wanted to see the girl at least once more, and there was a special reason for that. Maybe it all lies in the fact that the Duchess does not know Gerver's son and does not want to kill him. This is the first person who will be sincere being next to the heir who is already afraid of everything. Sadness takes over the body after the spoken phrase. It is clearly remembered that the Duke explained in the past that he even killed his own child so that Rudium would be alone. It was terrible in the past, but now everything is different. However, this does not apply to Iandwin. He is stuck in the same place and is now suffering. The beauty is called to check if she is nearby, and she immediately nods to make it clear that she has not disappeared anywhere and is still on the other side of the mirror. Even though the lady does not know Gerver's son, she sincerely hopes that he will live happily ever after because he deserves it so much. The only thing that matters in this world is to see different places, meet loved ones who will always support you, and live a full life painted with colorful colors. The guy can no longer hold back a sincere smile. He never even had an idea that someone could wish him a better life. Deciding not to dwell on one topic, he asks why the ex-Agnes constantly ran away from him. When Rodvik first heard the voice coming from the mirror, she was scared, thinking that it was a real ghost. Laughter is heard until the moment when the young master is called by the maid. It is time to take medicine. The baby hopes that they will talk again. But for now, it is worth hurrying so as not to anger anyone. Blake told me at dinner that he interrogated Philip again, and it seems he said the same thing as Rish, so he was found not guilty. The work was already done. Hikinka managed to convince that everything was fine, but the only one who still does not trust is Theon, who shouts that he is against his sister's initiative. They made this decision after careful consideration, so there will be no turning back. In any case, no one gave a choice, so the boy should just listen to what they tell him. The man decides to tell his daughter something. In fact, the wolf cub she was looking after is the son of Duke Serdia. The little girl pretends to be clueless, as if she had never even suspected the potential. Before it seems the child became very attached to the boy, so the Duke patiently waited for him to recover, which is what eventually happened. He was taken back home to his parents and subjects. While the brunette was saying something, he, without noticing it, began to cough. His hand itself reached for his mouth, and when he took it away, he discovered that there were some traces of blood, or rather dark liquid, left there. The two children froze in horror, not immediately understanding what was happening. The father simply denied it, saying that everything would end well. The girl says goodbye to Zig, who sadly lowered his head. She asks him not to be so upset, because at least all this time they had fun being together and playing. And this seems to be the most important thing the blonde promises, that the next time they meet, they will be able to play even longer than before. And in that case, everyone will be happy. Jed and the gentleman stayed aside, just to calmly observe everything. It's good that the baby doesn't cry because of the separation and behaves relatively calmly. The reason is only the fact that Rish is not a stupid child at all. She herself understands what's what and won't get upset over trifles. Duke Serdia has also already arrived. He bows his head, greeting his acquaintance, and thanks for the help. Now it turns out that he will remain indebted to Rodvik for what they did not even suspecting who is in front of them. The brunette calmly asks what the man is going to do with this in the future. Whether the friend really doesn't understand, or is pretending to disown everything in every possible way, it should be obvious that the son was so badly hurt, due to the fault of the elder, who again showed his abilities on him. If the situation that has arisen is not corrected, everything can repeat itself again, until one day it will be too late. Of course it doesn't concern the other family, but he wouldn't want to see his daughter even a little sad about the potential loss of a new friend. They're unlikely to listen to him. But the most important thing is to issue a warning, in which case the Duke has an idea, there's no need to worry. In the evening, the main character, as usual, was getting ready for bed. When someone knocked on the door, a little girl appeared on the threshold, who asked if she could be read to again. This option seemed the best for her. She didn't want to be left completely alone in a dark room when she could get a drop of love from another person. The guy led the child into the room, and laying him down on the pillow next to him, began to read. At the moment when the princess saved the prince, the lady had already fallen into a deep sleep, since she was probably very tired. It is impossible not to notice that, although at first she was embarrassed to call him father, now she comes every night to spend a little time together. Blake still sometimes wonders if the child really considers him her father, but the answer can only be obtained if he asks directly. There are no other options hiding the girl. The man quietly thanks her for trying, and for the first time opening her soul and heart to someone, letting them know her true self. It seems that the pathetic guy has very little time left to wait out the rest of his life. I want to ask for forgiveness, that I will not be able to take full responsibility for the fact that I took the girl only at my own discretion, depriving her of my home, which, despite all the horror inside, was an important part of life. The guy is sad that everything did not turn out in the best way, but for some reason, he is sure that the Rodvik name will be able to protect their future, doing everything so that the baby has a good childhood, even if the man dies, which in the end awaits around the corner. Very soon, the name and duchy will always be with her, trying to take her under their wing. Only half an hour has passed. The beauty carefully opens one eye to check if her father is sleeping. He really has already fallen asleep and seems to feel nothing. Her hand quickly reaches for the young man's palm. She needs to cleanse him of the Om energy, and if possible, remove as much as possible, while he still hasn't woken up, sensing something is wrong. At that moment, something takes hold of the heart, makes it shrink completely, and not understand what is happening. The baby was thrown aside. She does not know what to do, this time after the cleansing. All the power did not disappear. And even after the procedure carried out almost every night, it does not get better without Python. It is impossible to use the abilities properly. There is one option left that will have to be used for something to work out. The girl takes out that very pearl from her pocket. Her friend said that the star can restore abilities, and also that it can store healing abilities. So even if the heroine uses the abilities every day, she will be able to heal the body normally. In fact, the beauty becomes very scared. She does not know if she is ready for such an important step, but in the end, she brings the object closer to her body. It is not clear how much it will hurt, which only makes it even scarier. It is worth trying. It is never too late to start something. Twarish has no right to lose her father so easily, who deserves the whole world, which will always be better if he is alive. The heroine experiences torment, but lights up with joy when she sees how she completely cleanses the man. She understands that she can officially be proud of herself, but this is where the good ends, the cough begins. Morning has come, and the first rays of sunlight penetrate into the room, calmly jumping on the bed. The hero does not understand what is going on. He feels quite rested. His head does not hurt at all. Although before this, almost every time the horror came with different symptoms. Looking around, the gentleman does not understand where to put Twarish, who seemed to be falling asleep next to him. There were even more questions when a frightened Jed ran in and went with the young man to the doctor's room. The old man was crying. He was faced with such situations for the first time. No remedy could stop the bleeding. It was just so strong. Only now the guy begins to gradually put one piece of the puzzle together and begins to understand what everything was obvious from the very beginning. During their first meeting, the former Agnes's own uncle almost sold her as a slave. And by pure chance at that very time, Gerver was looking for Rutiom among the people at the slave market. During the hunting festival, the Duke behaved even worse, pestering Theon and asking if he had found the one and why he was hiding it in the castle. The zeal with which the Eye of Wisdom seeks it is not the power itself, but the daughter of Twarish, in whom all this is contained. The man had long ago found out that she was not in the market, but someone had taken her and seemed to have sniffed out where he should now rummage. The little girl asked at the first meeting if she would be hurt. She was especially afraid of this, and this pain was clearly manifested due to the purification of Omrish had been sacrificing herself all this time only to save the Rodvik family, which would have gradually sunk into darkness, if not for this little child with her plan to purify the body. The man speaks with anger in his voice, which is hard to miss. Tuarish must survive, and this time it is not an order, but a real request. A little later, the young man has already moved to his office to talk to Jed. He wants to know how many people have already examined his daughter, and in total it is 8 people, while 4 more doctors are still expected. If they need something, it will of course be provided. If they manage to save the girl, the person will be given any reward that he himself wishes to receive. The brunette listens to all this and chuckles a little. He thinks that this is right, but at the same time, he does not quite understand whether it is worth doing all this. News of the reward could spread. It could attract not only doctors to the estate, but also other fickle individuals who would only bring trouble to this family. Even people came who offered their children in exchange for the young lady and did not want to leave after the servant's words to go home. The brunette refuses to take anything away, even if rumors spread like wildfire. It's better than doing nothing. If he doesn't save Twarish, he'll blame himself for the rest of his life. All other problems are solvable. The little girl has done so much good for Rodvik and his son. He'll save her even at the cost of his own life. The blonde enters the office and calls the gentleman he did not want to distract from an important conversation. But it seems that he will have to go outside, because a bright red wolf came to the main gate. The two exchange glances because each of them instantly understood who exactly was being discussed. He will have to go out to check everything again. The knight leads to the gate on the ground near which sits a wolf cub with devoted eyes. He came early in the morning, and since then has not left this place. The knights who first noticed him said that he came from the northern wing. There is usually no one in that direction for one simple reason. There is a forest of monsters there. Even an adult cannot survive there alone. And it seems that Siegbert ran through all the obstacles, risking his life just to meet Riche. His actions show how much affection for the girl developed during those 2 weeks of courtship. There is nothing else to do, the gentleman asks. To let the baby inside, the knight asks for the last time, if the man is sure this animal, unlike last time, is now the heir of the Duke of Serdia, which he was made recently. The differences are big, and if something happens, the responsibility will be much greater. The guy asks if the guy heard about the rumors that had already spread. Sieg became the heir, defeating the firstborn of the Duke, who is 6 years older than him. A recent conversation with the man pops into his head. This is the idea he talked about earlier, the last time the wolf cub was handed back to the family. The brunette couldn't even imagine that the boss would force his sons to fight against each other. This werewolf had a strong opponent, because the eldest was well prepared. But the baby, although he was wounded to the point of bleeding and could no longer move forward, still decided not to give up. Many say that Zig won thanks to his persistence, which he has no shortage of. The animal's body is indeed covered in wounds. Some of them are not so terrible, but blood is visible from some. Despite all that pain, he still came to the Rodvik estate, which is too far away. You can't say that he has no guts. The future will be good. Jed, standing behind, finally speaks up, as he noticed that the gentleman had drifted off a bit lost in his thoughts, and not listening at all. The heir is not a simple member of the family. He is not sure if it is necessary to let him in when it is easier to leave him waiting outside the gate so that nothing happens. If the boy had come to this place as the one who would receive the throne of Serdia, he would not have been in such a deplorable state. He would not have had to suffer so much, and then go further through the forest of monsters to achieve his goal. It is immediately clear that the wolf came as a friend of Blake's daughter, and nothing more. He was sent immediately to the room of Tuarish. Theon stands near the bed, quietly asking his sister to wake up, using as an argument the fact that even the girl's new friend has arrived. The sad eyes of the animal make the heart clench. He jumps onto the bed and begins to lick the beauty's cheek, which the guy really doesn't like. Screams are heard in the room. The doctor took Zig away, believing that he would first have to treat the wounds that prevent him from functioning normally. The brunette tries not to pay attention, but it's all too complicated. He turns to Keeleen, asking if his sister will recover in his head. There are memories of his mother who left them after an illness. The hero can't hold back tears freeze in his eyes because of the image he created for himself. Sometimes those around him forget that he is still a small child who feels pain inside his heart. The Duke does everything possible to help his daughter, and of course, she will recover. The father must be trusted. The situation will end on a good note. The doctor lifts the gentleman from his chair and asks him to come with him. The young lady should not be disturbed so much. She vitally needs to get more rest. And then maybe tomorrow she will open her eyes as if nothing had happened and smile her radiant smile to the whole world. The guy no longer understands how to feel about this. The more time passes, the more difficult it becomes in his soul. The Duke does not understand why the girl did this, and why she saved him while causing direct harm to herself. Each action must have its own meaning. She probably did not want to lose her father just as much as he wanted Tuarish to be there. The young man volunteered to be a father. He was the one who found the child and took him into his home, intending to take good care of him, making life a little easier. But in fact, he did nothing to help him get happiness. The brunette sits next to him. He still feels too lousy to say anything, but promises that he will do everything for the one next to him. The hand tightly squeezes the palm, which seems to have just moved. The man tries to understand what will happen now, but he could not predict that the blue eyes will suddenly open, and a smile will appear on the face. The girl is glad that her dad has recovered, and he is happy that she is back with them. A second later, the heroine is in a strong embrace. Ian Wine is sitting near the wall. He leans his head and tries not to think about the bad thoughts still come back, making him understand that it is not so easy to distance himself. Exactly 7 days have passed, but that girl on the other side of the mirror has not returned, although she promised that they would see each other again. Something is wrong, because before she came to chat every day, a soft voice is heard. Ian immediately jumps up, saying that he is here and has not gone anywhere. The first thing Rish asks for forgiveness. She was very ill, so she could not contact through magic. The girl wanted to talk to her friend faster and constantly thought about it. The guy can't believe that they were worried about him, even when the disease was getting the better of him. But such news brings a slight smile to his face. He talks about how he was doing all this time. The hero was sitting in the room and drinking his medicine. Everything was as usual. Rish noticed that these are the same pills that his father scolds him for if he doesn't drink. The girl decided not to delay and asked what he thought about entering the Imperial Academy. He said that the more medicine he took, the worse he felt. If he entered school, his father would no longer be able to influence his son so much, or somehow force him to do something he didn't want. Ian agrees in some ways, but if he goes to the academy, he will only be able to return home during the holidays and may no longer be able to talk to his only friend. This is not true. The girl is going to enroll too, and they may see each other. The question about a direct meeting is quite difficult to answer. Anna interrupts the conversation. The lady has not yet recovered, but has already escaped from her room. It is time to go back, considering that the wolf gentleman is already waiting there, who came specially to visit his friend after her serious illness. The girl quickly throws out words about how she urgently needs to leave. There is absolutely no time left, and hurrying is the most important thing in any case. They will have to talk later, again. Ian is left completely alone. He puts his head on his knees, thinking about the academy. If he manages to get in, then they will be able to talk more often. The girl saw Zig and immediately ran up to hug him. Rish was even a little angry that the baby came back covered in wounds. She said that there was no need to visit her friend, because she had to overcome the forest of monsters first. Even if it was faster to go through that place, it didn't mean that she had to use the dangerous path. The brother sitting next to him on the bench is eating something, and it seems he is against what they are talking about. The kid thinks that there is no problem, because this is not the first time the wolf cub has overcome the distance that is between them. Perhaps he has managed to learn to survive in the forest, and this is the most important thing for now. The girl hugs her friend and agrees. He is no longer so weak to take such care of him. She is only now beginning to understand that the animal seems to increase in size each time, significantly, deciding to change the subject. The girl asks what the young man forgot in the garden. He was not going to play with them, but the words do not sound convincing. The guy was told to look after the wolf cub. Blake had a proper conversation with Siegbert so that he understood what was going on. First of all, he was allowed inside because he was a friend of Tuarish. If the kid wanted to come to the Rudvik estate in the future, he should never leave his wolf form this way. Some people could be fooled. Theon reminds his friend of his father's order. This is the most important thing, because failure to comply can end very sadly. If suddenly the animal does something strange, the boy will immediately report that he should be taken away and not allowed back, perhaps never again. The guy reached out his hand to hold the wolf cub's head for a bit, but he suddenly grabbed him by the sleeve and dragged him somewhere to the side. A second later, they both found themselves in a puddle, after which the water got everywhere it could. Siegbert didn't care, and he just shook off his fur a little, continuing to send the drops in different directions. The stupid animal will get what it deserves, and will see the power of Rodvik. It will be some kind of revenge. The guy gets up from the puddle and hears his sister laughing. If the girl is so happy, she will also get it in full. It should not be funny to see her brother, but you can't turn back time. The blonde jumps up and tries to run away, making wild screams. The children returned after sunset, but each of them was covered in mud and water. The Duke looks at their clothes skeptically, but then exhales. They look like they were having a lot of fun sitting down. He begins to wipe the girl's face with his sleeve. Jed helps clean the young gentleman, and remembers that he went there to look after Siegbert, which in the end did not happen. The beauty is truly happy. She can't even explain what she's thinking about. There's no certainty in her head about how long this happiness will last. There's more and more energy around her older brother and father, which only grows every day. After cleansing, they get better, but each time the effect is short-lived. Perhaps there is another way that the beauty has not yet found. She needs to think about what she can do in the near future. The girl wants to ask the Duke a question. She clears her throat a little and tries to get ready to be allowed to do what she has to ask for. If the older brother enters the academy, they won't be able to just play like that. So the blonde makes cute eyes and begs that she also try to enter and pass the exams to study with Theon. These words made the Duke freeze. He didn't understand why she needed this, but it seems he couldn't refuse. Only 3 years have passed, which lasted long enough. The gentleman decided to visit the academy because Rish will soon enter there. He just wants to ask the teachers to take care of the baby and pay attention to her. Like all the other aristocrats, the two talk and then follow the corridor of a beautiful estate. Jed doesn't quite understand where this is all leading to. The hero didn't do this, even when Theon did, saying that nothing would happen. In the end, the boy became the best student in his class, making everyone else very happy for him and proud of his achievements. Perhaps the concern is justified by the poor health of Lady Tuarish. It has worsened recently. The baby is overprotected. She deserves to decide for herself, despite the fact that she is still technically a child, even though it is so. And it is recognized the Duke can't help himself, and in fact he doesn't even try. Because he doesn't see the point, the girl is Rutium, nothing should happen to her. Added to all this is the problem that Rish, for some reason, decides to hide from everyone. The fact that he has one of the most powerful magics. There is nothing left but to follow his daughter's example. Most likely they are on the right path. The right decision was made, considering what that same Gerver is like. 3 years have passed since the last hunting festival 3 years ago. And since then, the man has not tried to give up his idea. which means that he has not lost a drop of interest in Twerish, or rather, in her powers. The first attempt was that he sent a spy to the mansion who watched the child and chose the moment to remove her from the others. In the end, Blake even had to find a double of a girl of the same age, just to hide her from observation, because in those moments the eye of wisdom was used, trying to find a loophole. After the last one, the guy seemed to have lost interest at least a little and went into hiding. It is not clear how long he will last. But even if he is making an insidious plan, the most important thing is that he does not touch the child. Blake is aware that the Duke's son is studying at the same academy in his second year. He will have to be more careful and ask his daughter to behave in the same way, so that the two do not get a single chance to cross paths. If this happens, the end will be ensured for sure. He can work for his father and pass everything on to him. In the corridor, the man, of course, ran into the boy. He was so immersed in his thoughts that he himself did not notice how he appeared in his path. The guy immediately bows his head, greeting the Duke. They saw each other several years ago at the hunting festival when his family was removed due to an altercation. The brunette doesn't really listen. He's interested in something else, so he grabs his interlocutor by the chin with his fingers, asking if he had the same color pupils. Back then, he knows that all people with special abilities have golden pupils. But in his case, they are now some kind of gray shade that no one even knows. It is clear that the blonde is worried and even shaking a little, but he tries to pull himself together and give a normal answer. In fact, his father ordered him to wear a medallion around his neck, while his studies at the academy continue, because he must acquire all the knowledge on his own. This option is the most favorable to be the strongest. The superpowers necessary for a person can only be acquired if you go to the bitter end. This pendant does not allow you to use the abilities, but magic does not allow you to remove the decoration. So there is no way out at all. The reason is plausible. But Rudvik does not believe Gerver. He does not know what he has planned this time. Rish is better off staying away from suspicious friends, but this boy is sincerely sorry. Before leaving, the Duke said that if the hero suddenly needed any help, he could always ask Blake about it, and he would try to solve the problem. There was a commotion in the class. Many already knew that Dirkadion's sister would be among the newcomers. She entered a little later. Although she is the same age as him, she is a commoner. Some kid doesn't call the girl lady, but just calls her names. And even after his deskmate says that her brother might get angry if he hears, he just laughs. There's no point in thinking because Theon hates the girl with all his heart. The brunette heard how recently, when the guy was asked about her existence, he got angry, which once again confirmed all the guesses. The beauty is probably disgusted by her own family. Although given her background, it is not even strange. Others agree that they would also be angry if some commoner suddenly appeared in the family. But she is lucky because she is second in line to the throne. Considering that the life of people with abilities is not that long, it will be a little easier to climb to the top and take the title. The girl asks to be quieter because Iandvine is sitting in the hall, who also has power and can be offended. The conversations stop as soon as the teacher enters the hall. She starts the roll call and notes everyone, but she has to stop once again at Siegbert, who as usual is not in his place in the audience. The woman had already warned Serdi several times that if he missed a class even once more, he would not be able to receive the highest grade, which was valued. It seemed that the words seemed like a joke to him, since he still did not show up. The boy should know what serious consequences awaited him. One of his classmates would pass the information on to him. Ian sits and dreams he doesn't even listen to the words because he's not very interested in it. It's known that today is the day of the entrance ceremony. That girl said that she would come of her features. The young man only knows how her voice sounds. It resembles the sweet singing of birds. He sincerely hopes that he will be able to recognize her when they meet and have a normal conversation. In front of the entrance to the Imperial Academy stands the heroine, and next to her is her father, together with Philip. Before such an event in life, there is probably a drop of excitement inside that will linger in the consciousness. Then the fun school years of the Duchess will begin, and the man will lay down his life for her protection and providing a good time with friends. The blonde nods, but reminds that there is no need to risk her life. His life is also precious. It is his duty, and the man is glad that the lady chose him. So now he will have to pay back. It seems that the guy likes how the next year will go, and he himself wants to be nearby, going to school. Philip remembers how Anna and Jed ordered to keep a good eye on Tuarish. She can't even imagine how fierce the competition for the honor of serving was. So if you don't take risks, acquaintances will probably make you regret the day you were born. It's a little scary to think about it, but in reality, everything is not so bad. The knight was chosen for protection, because at any moment he could be possessed by Hekenka. It's a bit of a pity that the guy is so happy inside, although ultimately, the reason is something more important. The girl is not going to tell the true intentions. She will stay aside, allowing a little joy. That spirit promised that the girl would be able to meet Peyton again, only if she entered the academy. This was one of his conditions that were set first. Tarish rushed forward, trying to enter as early as possible, but due to her age, she was able to get into the place only after 3 years of good preparation. There is joy in her head because very soon she will be able to meet the goddess of war. No one knows what the beauty is thinking about, but her mood has improved. A crowd is gradually starting to form in the distance. This only means that the ceremony will begin very soon. Tuarish will go there with the Duke. It is time not to be afraid. The Duchess will definitely save her friend. She proudly raises her head, the duo follows forward, and hears someone start whispering about the origin of the commoner. No one thinks that the right decision was made. The Rodvik family has special abilities, but only a person who is not of sound mind will take a commoner into the ducal family. Some begin to think that the blonde was illegitimate. Philip gets angry and asks the gentleman if it should be sorted out, but he waves it off, since today is the ceremony for Reich. It is better not to make a fuss that could ruin the whole impression of the first day. The man watches the child, looking around with interest. It's time for him to return back to the duchy. There will be hope that the girl will cope on her own. The little girl nods actively. She is from the Rodvik family, so such a simple task will not take much time and effort. The blonde promises that she will write letters a little more often, which will then receive an answer. Stepping forward, she claps just like the first-year students. It's time to go to the classrooms, where the professors have already prepared the material for the first day, which, given the knowledge, will not be very difficult to complete. Rish hears a familiar voice calling her, and turns around. She freezes because Theon and Robenhaf are standing in front of her. They came to see each other, so the girl is going to hug everyone, although not right away, but she realizes that the two should be in class. It seems that a decision was made to skip, despite the fact that it is strictly forbidden. Gibbetsman comes forward, pushing his friend aside, saying that he, unlike him, knows nothing. The boy is on the committee for organizing the entrance ceremony. This is something he can even be calmly proud of. They haven't changed at all. They are still just as funny and smiling. The girl says that it is very cool that the young man is a member of such a committee. The words hit him in the heart, and he almost fell to the floor. He has to ask if his friend is okay, but the brother suggests not to pay attention to him because his behavior sometimes goes beyond all bounds of what is permitted. Theon turns to the side and points forward along the corridor. They walk the girl to the class. She is not going to go anywhere. Stops and raises an eyebrow because she does not need help with such a simple task her father assigned Philip, who, if possible, will always be nearby, so that if anything happens, he can protect her. Sinka is about to leave. Rodvik tries to stop her for the last time, but then she breaks down and starts screaming. He probably doesn't even know how expensive it is to study at the academy. There is no need to continue looking for excuses to skip classes. Study better and try, so that Blake is happy with the successes he sees. The knight went with the lady, only the ceremony took place, but she was already quite tired. Too much workload makes her worry. The guards are forbidden to accompany students in the classroom. But Hekenka will not move into the body when the main object is not around. This is the only hope for the beauty. For now, she had to say goodbye at the door. Tuarish can't even imagine how it happened that she entered the academy, because in the past, it wasn't even some kind of dream. Her father asked if his daughter could handle it. So there's no need to let her down. She will try and put in all her strength until the very end, just so that everything goes well. To begin with, the plan will remain the same. Saving Python is the most important thing, and then they will all be happy for the rest of their lives. A picture of happiness that cannot be taken away has already appeared in their head. The door creaks, a teacher enters, who immediately orders everyone to shut up. It turns out that her name is Rombella Izmitic. She will conduct the first lesson, which should go relatively well before the start. She must expel the offender, and then the first materials will appear on the board themselves. Behind sits Siegbert, who is not even on the stands, but on a table in the form of a turtle, which just moved. Many students thought that it was just a statue, but it turned out that the young man entered quietly, trying not to distract anyone, and transformed. He approaches Rish and says that he came because he was very bored. The little girl wasn't even given a chance to answer anything, as Rumbella started screaming. Serdia dared to skip her morning class, and on top of all this, he came to disturb the first-year students. He will be severely punished for the way he behaved, and in the future, his actions will serve as a lesson. Tuarish Rodvik was asked to follow the teacher. At first it seemed that she would also receive punishment, but they approached the principal's office. There is a commotion inside the room. The teachers have never seen such high numbers written on paper. They mean the power that a person has. The girl's abilities are at the level of 98 out of 100 existing for an ordinary person. This indicator is usually no more than 5, and for people with innate magical abilities, from 10 to 30. Even for those who were born into a family with special powers, only 50-60 points, but as a rule, this is no more. Probably someone from the committee made a mistake. There can be no other options. It's true, one of the teachers denies it. He can't remember the last time they made a mistake. The director is also asked about his opinion, but he doesn't have time to answer, because Tuarish enters the room with Rumbella, who brought her in on the given order. The little girl was called because of the result of the test. For magical abilities, the blonde immediately realized that every future first-year student took this exam. Before the entrance exams, it was one of the most important parts that existed at the admission stages. In order to see for herself, the lady is handed a sheet of paper with the results. Since she knows nothing, she asks if it is normal to get 98. The teachers are vying with each other to shout such talent cannot be acquired. Even for money, such people are almost never born. They are unique in their number. The director barely audibly gets up from his seat and quietly asks again to make sure that what he heard was true. This, as we know, will be enough to put the Udic Academy in its place, which for many years treated others as a second-rate institution. The old man seems to have gone a little too far. He sits down on a chair and apologizes. However, in view of such results, he would like to propose something to Miss Tuarish. She may agree, and thus receive more privileges. The girl has the right to move from the general department to the Department of Magic in that place. For 8 years, a scholarship will be paid, which is due to all star students who are different from others. The blonde froze in surprise. She certainly did not expect this. When she entered the office, she had to promise to think about it and come back with an answer. I remember a conversation with Python when they were all together and came to a picnic in the garden. In the world of people, stars are called magical power. These are the abilities that wizards have, of which there are not many. They have been connected with this world for a very long time, so everything arose earlier. People cleverly learned to use the power of the stars, which leaked here and there. The goddess thought that becoming a sorceress might be a good option. As is known, Rudium was created by the most powerful star. This will allow her to surpass all her allies and opponents. Surely Tuarish got such a high result on the test only because she is a natural healer. If she studies magic, she will be able to cleanse people from even without the help of Python. This is exactly what the beauty wanted to get for so long, but now does not know how to react. Both father and brother are still healthy at the moment, but a little time will pass, and destructive energy will accumulate inside. Again, the maiden would like to cleanse not only her family, but also Robenhalf and Sieg, who have always been kind despite their origin. The heroine counts on her fingers who she can add. Duke Serdia and Gibbetsman are also better to write down. There are many advantages to everything. With the scholarship, Dad will have to pay a little less for his studies, so the budget will be planned more rationally. Ianwain also comes to mind, about whom the lady has not heard anything. Since she said that she was entering the academy, she promised to talk to him through the mirror during the holidays. When the girl asked about Gerver's son, they didn't really tell their friends anything. Robinhalf tried to smile and understand why the beauty was so interested in that man, and his brother couldn't hold back at all and started to get aggressive. Now that the blonde is at the academy, she can figure everything out herself. She doesn't need help as much as she did before she can handle the task, even if it takes a certain amount of time in the corridor. The lady met Philip while he was waiting for the woman. A girl suddenly fell on her knees in front of him. The knight helps the stranger to get up, but then two men appeared behind her, asking Celine why she was sitting on the floor. The very first scenario is that the green-haired man pushed her down. The woman screams that this is not so because they tried to help her. A crowd formed around everyone was shouting that they were on the girl's side, and Rodvik's people wouldn't get off that easily, although they shouldn't be in the academy at all. They started putting moral pressure on the beauty, ordering her to answer and tell the truth. The stranger turns his gaze full of hatred to Philip and Tuarish, and then spits out offensive words like master, like servant. Maybe it's all because he also comes from a commoner background. The lady tries to protect the knight, saying that he did nothing, but he promises that he will figure it out on his own. The man quickly realized that the students gathered nearby did not like the fact that Rish was someone who was not from a noble family, no matter what she said. Now no one would listen. They despised her and created a commotion to ruin life at school. Celine, who is also trying to explain herself, is still not being listened to by anyone. They lift her up and try to hug her, while the knight is ordered to kneel down and ask for forgiveness, unless, of course, he wants to tarnish his master. Someone steps forward. People around move aside so that the boy appears in the middle of the circle. If the gentlemen really want to know the truth, it is best to trust Ian, because he can tell how everything happened down to the very last detail. Because the girl hid through the mirror during the conversations, she did not see the guy's face, but she is absolutely sure that it is her friend in front of her. The voice cannot be confused with anyone else who is making noise in the narrow corridor. The beauty catches herself thinking that she is glad to see him healthy. The blonde wanted to start the story, but that stranger got ahead of him. She finally shamed her friends and started pushing them towards the exit, while asking for forgiveness from Rodvik. And her guards' children can be cruel. And today, the situation was no exception. Finally, the showdown is over. You can breathe easy and stop thinking about the worst. Philip thanks, assuming that the blonde is from the Gerver family. The guy waves his hands, saying that in fact, he exposed their lies with the help of the same lies. He could not think of anything better. Pointing to the medallion, the handsome man notes that he cannot use his powers due to confinement, all because his father is worried about his poor health and decided to set some restrictions. The only thing Ian Wen really asks is to keep the truth a secret from the other students. They must not find out. The servant smiles, promising that he will keep his mouth shut. The guy turns to Tuarish. He is glad to meet him and is sure that they will become friends. It seems that the lady is not going to greet the young milord. She hides behind Philip's back and remains silent until she asks her friend to lean a little closer to make it easier to whisper. Of course, the lady does not ask her questions right away, hoping that she will be able to carry out her plan. Rish asked how she could repay for the help. She did it through the knight, who passed on the information to the interlocutor. Nothing in return is needed. The young man hopes that they will meet very soon. Being friends is all that is important now, given the circumstances and the situation. The two who caused the commotion in the corridor are standing in the courtyard. Celine left them and went to the medical center. Because she had a headache, one of them complains about the shameful situation they accidentally got into. The young man waited so long for the moment to wipe the commoner's nose, but nothing happened. If only it had been possible to find out about Gerver's appearance in advance, the situation would have been resolved faster, even before his arrival. As soon as Tuarish graduates from the academy, she will probably enter high society, so she will have to get rid of her a little earlier. She has no right to take control of her duchy. Footsteps were heard behind him, followed by a dark aura. It seemed that the person they were just talking about was Theon's sister, who was nearby, and heard everything in detail. He suspected that Rish would be disliked, but this was too insidious. The duo had already moved to the Rish library, where she decided to read a little to calm down. From the very end of the dialogue, Philip did not lag behind and continued to smile, asking the lady what was wrong. She had such excellent manners, which were now disappearing because she did not even speak to young Iandwine. The last assumption, which seems much more logical, is that the blonde is already at that age when love comes, and therefore simply could not contain her feelings that were bursting out. She says that this is not true, but hears in response laughter that does not end. The knight doesn't realize how much more complicated the situation will be. if they get closer, and he finds out that his girlfriend is Ruthiome, of course. Thanks to the artifact, he can't use his powers. But it doesn't matter. The girl asks him not to tell her father about what happened in the hall. The guy doesn't understand what the problem is, but he's going to keep the lady's first love a secret if it comes to that. The man can only talk about those aristocrats who so persistently tried to set up the beauty. The Duchess does not want to bother a busy man unnecessarily. Besides, if anything, he will replace Philip with Anna. The words worked much better. The green-eyed man promises that he will keep his mouth shut. The blonde asked for forgiveness for not being able to properly stand up for her subordinate. They went to sleep, but at night the lady woke up because of Python's familiar voice. Either this is a mistake, or the goddess really woke up after several years of imprisonment in that red bottle. The sounds come from the box standing on the windowsill. The beauty grabs the bottle opener, and only then realizes that there lies the same motionless body of a squirrel, which remained in the same state as before. She wants to scream. In fact, the heroine did not realize, but she relied on Python much more than it seemed. She did not think that the goddess would be so necessary to her. Tears well up in her eyes and flow down her cheeks in even lines. The little girl doesn't know what she'll do if Hikenka doesn't show up to all this quickly. Realizing what's happening, she slaps her cheeks, ordering herself not to lose heart. The promise to save her friend remains in force. She needs to do everything possible. Only now, Tuarish noticed the beautiful sky and the full moon. Sad thoughts seemed to haunt her everywhere, because Pekin liked to go to the monster forest just on the full moon. She even said that on such a day, there were only advantages, because there was no one around, only silence. The gaze switches to Ian, who is following somewhere. He is on the street in his pajamas, and does not even pay attention to what is ahead. There are rustles behind. Philip is standing again, with those same golden eyes, which makes it clear that the night has already disappeared. He and Ruthiome have not seen each other for a long time. It would be worth making up for lost time, and preferably as soon as possible. The green-haired man asks if he managed to see the goddess of war, who briefly woke up. After all, the voice was not an illusion, but reality. At first, the man was going to let them meet as he promised. But apparently, he has not yet gained enough strength, so nothing will work out. Time dragged on in the moment. Since this is how it happened, Hikenka again asks to leave Peyton and sign a contract with him. According to him, this will be a profitable option that can be used. The beauty refuses. She kept all her promises saved. Philitap and entered the academy. Iandwine is also no longer in the Duke's castle and does not even bother him. It's time to return the animal back, or rather, her soul, which was taken away. The man chuckles and then turns away. He is not sure whether the lady really kept her promise or whether it is a simple illusion that does not represent anything at all. The boy said that Iandwine not only needed to be taken from the Duke's castle and his life saved, but that he would die today. The young man walked forward. He did not understand what was happening, but his body once again moved on its own, no matter how much he wanted to stop. His legs did not belong to him, and everything remained exactly the same as before. The blonde is afraid that he will die in this way, but at the same time it doesn't really matter. He always knew that he wouldn't live long. His father simply wouldn't allow him. But the only thing is, he would like to talk to that girl behind the mirror at least one more time. The Duke said that his mother had left behind a strange thing, namely a mirror, with a stone broken into two parts, with the help of which a person on the other side could spy on the estate. But there was no need to worry anymore, because Gerver had taken good care of the spies. The fragments flew apart because they couldn't be glued back together, and time couldn't be turned back. The man seemed to not care. He reminded that you need to take medicine even during the holidays, and their conversation ended very quickly. The boy lived only for his girlfriend, and he regretted that he couldn't fulfill his promise. The imagination of that girl is reflected in the surface of the lake, after which a loud splash is heard. Hikenka runs ahead of Ruthiome, pointing in the direction where Iandwine might have gone. Time is running out, and before he could even finish his line, the man disappeared. Philip looks around, not understanding why they are in the depths of this forest. The girl asks the young man again, just in case, if he is really nearby, and he nods. They cannot stop considering that half of the way has already been passed. Pointing forward, the lady asks, not to hesitate. They need to find Iandwine before it is too late to do anything. The green-eyed man does not move from his place. He calls the lady once again, asking why she is looking for the Duke's son in the forest, near the academy in the middle of the night, who is supposed to be sleeping in his bed. This day brings new surprises, each of which changes its appearance. Tuarish turns around and looks sadly into Philip's eyes. She asks him to at least not say anything this time and just help find the one they lost. The only thing that matters is what remains to be done. The duo still hurries forward, and right in the distance, a beautiful lake opens up. There is no one around, but the young man is sure that he heard something fall, but he does not understand what exactly it was. It is all too strange. Because of the darkness, it becomes more difficult to figure out. The eyes focused on the surface of the water, only Rudium can see the energy of Ohm. And this is exactly what appeared somewhere in the depths. Quickly realizing what was happening, the lady tells the knight that there is a person in the water who needs to be saved. There is no time to waste. Running to the very shore, the lady notices the face of her friend, who is gradually sinking under the water. The level is getting higher, and the situation is getting worse. Fear takes over the body. It is scary to think that in a second Ian will die. Something needs to be done urgently. Philip doesn't think long and dives underwater himself to get the boy out of there. As soon as he is back on the surface, he answers the lady's question, assuring that everything is fine. First, they need to check the condition of the young gentleman, and then they will be able to assess the damage. The green-haired man carefully places the body on the ground and examines it. Pressing his ear to the chest, he suddenly jumps up and starts shaking. Something Ian Vane's heart is not beating if he just recently fell into the water and did not have time to swallow too much. One can only hope that this will at least help somehow. The boy simply has no right to die. He is obliged to meet many new people, see this world, and be happy just as he promised. From the very beginning, a rich life awaits him. It would be stupid to refuse. Now the girl does not want her friend to end up just like her in her past life. Only now did the lady understand something people with Ohm abilities accumulate inside the heart. And most likely there is no heartbeat, because too much power has accumulated in the weak body, which takes away life energy. If the power of purification can get inside, the problem will be solved almost immediately. The power calmly spreads throughout the body, with a bright light making him feel absorbed. Ian begins to cough. It seems that he finally woke up, because Rudium immediately provided help, thereby saving his life, and prolonging it at least a little more. The young man tries to toss and turn, but he has no strength left through some kind of veil. He sees two strangers in front of him who are crowded together, but then he loses consciousness again, despite what is happening. At least he has a heartbeat, which means that everything is not so bad, he will be fine. Judging by how quietly Gerver Jr. fell by the lake at that moment, the hero was also unconscious and did not understand what he was deciding on. If he were conscious, he would probably have fought for his life and not calmly allowed himself to drown. The little girl tries not to show her feelings, but she herself understood that all this was most likely an insidious plan of Duke Gerver. Philip promises to report what happened to the master. This time the option of postponing, or keeping a secret, is not used. First, you need to get back into the hostel to put the boy to rest. The green-eyed man has put the body on his back and is already leaving. His head is full of thoughts. One thing is not clear, namely how the lady found out that Ian Vane is in the forest. Perhaps the beauty was following the guy, and somehow found out where he would be. It is hard to believe that Ian is really Tuarish's first love. If people in the Rodvik estate find out about what happened, they will probably raise a fuss. It will be difficult to report, and the task will have to be turned to one's advantage. Gibbetsman met the knight near the window. He is not going to retreat and smiles on such a dark night. The man opens the windows and enters someone else's room, so it seems he will have to tell what happened and what made him behave so specifically. Robberhalf's guards, who begin asking questions and ordering him not to miss a single unnecessary detail. He was simply passing by, saw the young Master Gerver unconscious, and brought him back because he thought that, as a decent person, he was simply obliged to take care of him. The guy had no idea where the Duke's room was, and he thinks he has no right to wake Dirkadion, who would probably be furious as soon as he got out of bed. Because this happens every time he doesn't get enough sleep, He's not trying to say that Gibbetsman and his sleep are less important. Philip thought that this could be a good opportunity for the young man, because when he found the gentleman, the young lady was also nearby. We are talking about Rish. The blue-eyed man immediately understands this and freezes with his mouth open, even blushing a little. His reaction was quite predictable. The knight found a weak point and was going to press on it until he got his way. He puts a smile on his face, saying that if such a kind person as Robinhalf helps the Duke, Tuarish will definitely praise and be delighted the girl likes good people who help others. Of course the hero agreed. There was no need to go to Theon. Ian remembers the very moment when he started to drown, his lungs gradually filled with water, which did not allow him to breathe. Normally, it became more and more difficult. Someone called the boy, begging him not to die, and to be near, the voice seemed familiar to him, but he could not figure it out. Before the young man's eyes was a blurry picture of a girl who was definitely crying, because of him no longer trying to hold back from what was happening. Jumping up, the hero realizes that he is in his room, in bed. Something is wrong, or it was a stupid dream that ended simply leaving an unpleasant trace. Looking down, the blonde realizes that he is wearing different pajamas. Most likely what happened was still reality falling into the water, and the girl's voice were also part of life, but it still didn't become clear what happened at that moment, and who that beauty was the stranger. Perhaps she will never meet him again. Rodvik arrived at the academy, but did not know that the student who wanted to see him was Ianwine. It seems that the boy took the promise to help directly if something bad happens. They sit in silence, but not for long because, of course, everything will end very soon. It seems that the hero was very busy, so the boy apologizes for accidentally distracting him. He already said that if help is needed, he is always glad to be there, so the Duke assures that everything is fine, while asking what the matter is, that an urgent meeting was needed, and even a personal one. In my head, there are memories that will probably stay there for a long time. The maiden said that although she doesn't know who is in front of her, she wants him to see this whole world and definitely live, meet many people, and be happy. The hero promised that he would live a rich life that would be the best only for him. If that child is in the academy and all this time walks somewhere nearby in the corridors, the blonde does not want to continue to die. Being under the influence of his father, he decided that it was time to change his life by 360 degrees. Otherwise, the end will come completely unnoticed. Andwine wants to meet Ruthio and say that he has achieved everything he promised. Exhaling, he begins his story. The father wants the boy to die since childhood. He gave him suspicious drugs. Evidence, unfortunately, does not exist, but his health deteriorated precisely because of them. Gerver Jr. entered the academy only to no longer take medication because he wanted to try to get out of this pit of oblivion. His father decided not to let go of his hands and grabbed his throat, hanging a medallion there, which greatly limits his strength. After entering, the young man also began to have problems with sleepwalking. Every time the main character fell asleep, the body began to move on its own and led to dangerous places, which were each time in a different direction. Not long ago, the blonde thought that he would not be able to cope with what was happening and would simply die. But he was lucky. Such a life is not reality. You need to find a way to avoid horrors. The Duke listened to the boy and nodded. He seemed to understand what was going on, and therefore promises that he will sincerely try to help and find a way out of the merged situation, which can still be corrected before it is too late. Lowering his head, Ian cannot hold back. Tears are rolling down on their own, and he tries to thank. A day later, the girl arrived at the director's office. She finally made a decision and became the one who agreed that it was possible to transfer to the Department of Magic, because this is exactly what was needed. All the necessary documents were already ready from today. She would begin magic lessons like the rest of the new faculty. The old man does not listen to the little girl's indignation at all about the fact that she did not think that everything would happen so soon. He began to rejoice long ago. Very soon, the most talented magician of all time will appear in his academy. Fate is predetermined. There is no point in wasting time. Coming outside, the blonde calmly moves forward, but still thinks about what is happening. She does not know if she will be able to cope, but deep down, she hopes that this will end with a favorable outcome. Nothing like this will happen to her. Before she can reach the end of the room, the girl runs into her friends, who, as it turns out, were looking for her. before Zig is the first to open his mouth, saying that they have created a circle that anyone who wants to can join. Robin Half got angry almost instantly. He thought that he would be the one to convey the truth when it comes to Rish. He reacts this way almost always, and there are no exceptions for him from the very beginning. From the third year, it is necessary to enroll in at least one club, and since it was easiest to create your own to suit your taste, both Zig and Theon did just that. Another reason is that people run away from any place where the blonde's brother comes, even though she thinks that he is not so bad. At first, the name was something like Academic Council for Desserts, so that you could laze around and eat sweets, but in the end, nothing changed. The lady did not quite understand whether it was possible to create something like that. In her opinion, it was even a little strange, although Gibbetsman does not think so. Now, a new problem has emerged, which is much larger than the previous one. The circle is small, and even if a first-year student joins it, there will still only be 4 people. Perhaps a friend has someone who would also like to join, so that the full composition could be registered. The heroine even thought for a moment, going through several existing options, which were discarded one after another. The lady does not know if she will be able to convince anyone, but today she was transferred to the magic department. There are many new people there. As soon as Twarish entered her class, the people who were standing near the tables dispersed. The girl who came over to them was on a completely different level. Everyone already knows how she is different, so no one tries to stand in her way. It looks like making friends will be a little more difficult than she initially wanted. The girl exhales. She is no longer even angry because she can't blame anyone. Zig smiles, saying that he will always be there for. Rish Robenhalf is obviously jealous, so he stops talking, which at the moment does not help in any way. Cyrdia himself promised another person, although it seemed that he had no normal friends at all besides their group after classes. Ianwine came out into the hall, who smiled and greeted everyone he recognized Twarish first, because they had seen each other then, together with that knight who had shielded her. The Duchess does not believe what is happening, and cannot concentrate, because the friend that Siegbert brought turned out to be Gerver's son inside. There is a frozen horror that cannot be changed. Her face will remain frightened, although this may seem strange to others. The lady would not be able to say a single word in front of him without her voice being recognized. But her friends would think it was suspicious, so the lady would end up cornered, and not a single living soul should know about the mirror and Hikenke. There has already been a shift in Rish's mind. She thinks that everything will end extremely badly, because as soon as people find out that Rudium is in front of them, they will start trying to get some benefit from her for their family. A brunette came into the room who gently puts his hand on his younger sister's shoulder. He asks what happened, but the little girl remains silent, looking around with frightened eyes in her head. At the moment, there is already real chaos, which is impossible to turn back. Theon doesn't need to be told what's going on. He thinks his sister was offended, and his expression immediately changes. 160 degrees. Sieg shrugs. Ianwain is his friend, so it seemed that introducing them to each other wouldn't be a problem. The girl thinks that she needs to run away quickly, and preferably as far away as possible. She has no other options left. She asks the guy to lean closer to her and whispers that she wants to eat. Of course, there is no explanation why they are talking in a whisper. A minute later, they left, and the guy calmly said that they were going to feed the dog. Ian wonders who that name is, while Robinhalf drills him with an evil look. The blonde is so handsome that it even takes his breath away. Twarish can fall in love with him. He will have to stop the young man right away, without even giving him a chance to lay eyes on Twarish, who deserves someone better. He smiles, assuming that it is time to fill out an application to join the circle. Entering the classroom, Gibbetsman asks whether the hero returned safely to the room that day. Then at night he fell into the water, and therefore now the most important thing is to clarify purely for safety purposes. No one suspects how surprised the Duke was when he was approached with such a strange request. In the middle of the night, he even had to give away his pajamas, and his favorite one, since the eldest was completely wet. Thus the blue-eyed one shows that he and Rish are close. The blonde immediately leaned his elbows on the table and anxiously began asking who saved him that day. Obviously, he didn't know about Rodvik. Judging by the expression on his face, if he tells the truth, There will be big problems. Smiling, the blue-eyed man replies that he doesn't know anything. Sitting in the garden, the brother asks the blonde if she doesn't like Ianwin. And if so, he can be kicked out. The lady has her own reasons. It has nothing to do with him at all. The girl tries to wriggle out of answering questions, and she also has a sore throat. So she says that she won't be able to do it in the group. That's the condition. The only one who can help is Theon, and he has to agree despite himself. The Trinity is already approaching. They also want to be close and present. The brunette assures that they are not having tea. His sister has caught a cold, so she wanted to have a snack, and then rest a little, preferably in complete silence. Robenhalf is worried and asks why he wasn't told before Sieg turns into a wolf and comes over to lay his head on the girl's lap. Ianwain stands to the side. The boy used to smile, but now something has happened because his facial expression doesn't change at all. He's sad. The girl sincerely hoped that at the academy, the guy would have more reasons to have fun. Someone took them all away, or there was another important reason for that. Having risen, the lady brought the blonde a beautiful cupcake, and he accepted it with pleasure. For a second, he seemed to see something a reflection of the man who had been crying. Then the same hair. It's hard to believe that Rish was that savior. They are very suspiciously similar to each other, and therefore it's almost impossible to make a mistake. It's unsettling. Now that they had filled out the application, it was time to end the meeting, considering that Rodvik was sick and wouldn't be able to talk to the others properly. Just so Ianwin knows he can leave the circle as soon as approval comes tomorrow. If it's already created, it won't be disbanded because of a reduced team member. The guy is not busy, so he will stay with them. Robenhalf tries not to show his irritation, but everything is traced in his head. Only because of her brother did the girl survive. Today she was not forced to talk, and therefore everything ended quite quickly. They offer her to go inside as soon as possible. Philip arrived, and since the guards would be nearby, the young man was going to leave. He thought that the lady would return later, but she became free earlier. It was the first meeting. At the end of the hall sits the girl who was on the floor. Then she is a friend of those hooligans who attacked the knight and tried to ruin the heroine's life. Apparently, Selena hurt her leg, but there was no point in helping her while Philip was speaking. The lady had already run away and came up to ask what happened and check her condition. Sitting down next to her, the heroine decides to heal the bruise on her knee. It is about the same as last time, so it will be quite easy to cure with the help of a star. Selena sits with her mouth open because she can't believe the use of magic. She has never seen anything like it before, so she is surprised. Nothing hurts anymore. Looking away, lie down and apologize for how her friends treated her last time. Twarish is actually a good person. The blonde couldn't pass by the man who was left in trouble for her. It was normal if they were finished. It would be better to go back to the knight who was worried. Selena asks to stop. She has some question, but first she has to ask about Ianvin and whether Rodvik is friends with him. The girl has already said that she cannot pass by a person in trouble, and so now we will talk about a boy. It seems that Ian sleepwalks every day. A knight of the ladies' guard saw the young man walking outside the estate at night. It seems he saw him 4 or 5 times since that autumn. It happens again and again. Something inside the blonde broke. She thought that all of this was set up by the Duke, but now nothing fits, and this makes her feel uneasy. Selena is especially worried that the baby cried very bitterly. If the lady succeeds, she must take care of his health, and even if it is too much, but he is a classmate who is worried about. You can't close your eyes to what's happening to the guy, so that it won't be too late. In the end, it won't end so badly. Philip heard every word, and he also has to keep an eye on Gerver. If his illness progresses, he could get into some kind of trouble. This is clearly not all. There are far more problems than it might seem. For some reason, my soul is too restless. There are too many thoughts that I can't put aside. The boy lies in bed. He is afraid to fall asleep because he may never open his eyes again. Duke Rodvik promised to help, but did not say when he would contact again. It felt like his head was about to split, but he was still too scared to sleep. The young man decided to go out for a walk and found himself again at that unfortunate lake in the forest. That girl was definitely Twarish, but it was unclear how to approach her. Someone was jumping from behind the girl's knight, grabbed the guy, and gave the lady a signal of success. The beauty hurries forward, asking not to let the guy go, so that he does not fall into the water. It turns out that he is in his mind, and that means he has now heard a voice that he recognizes. They sit on the bench in complete silence. It turns out that the Duke was out for a walk and didn't tell anyone inside. There is a frozen fear because the first line is about to be said. Gerver smiles, saying that he is fine. The girl asks if it is scary to sleep, knowing that the symptoms can appear at any time. Today, he went for a walk for this very reason. This way, the condition will only get worse. This way, things won't go. The blonde remembers that her friend came to the academy to improve his poor health. You'll have to do everything your own way. The girl's brother might be against it. But in reality, he's not as cruel as he might seem to other people around him. He's much better. The young master was brought in by Philip. The boy stands with an angry expression on his face, because he was very angry when he realized that he was not allowed to get a good night's sleep. To stop the knight from babbling too much, the brunette hit him and then asked why Rish had called him at all. She must have had some important reason. The little girl wants the hero to sleep with the Duke today, and it is impossible to refuse such a request, because it is a matter of life and death in the literal sense of the word. Isenwain has recently started showing symptoms, many suspicious signs that suggest that this is not simple sleepwalking, but something more. Last time, the guy almost drowned in the lake, but the Duke still doesn't care. Tuarish immediately drooped. She thought that at least once they would listen to her and do her a favor. The one sleeping with the blonde last time they tied him to the bed and nothing worked, so she needs a living person nearby. The two had already started to quarrel, but then a brunette appeared who had clearly come to life. In a menacing voice, he promised that he would take care of the boy and ordered him to quickly follow forward. They moved away and said goodbye to the knight and the girl who remained in the clearing. Ian was given only one warning: not to lay claim to the boy's sister, so that things would not go badly. In the morning, the first lecture on magic began. People cannot generate energy, but they use magic extracting it from different magic stones that they find. Today, the practice of turning stones into water is appointed in order to deny the existing essence and endow it with a new one. It is necessary to try a new way of concluding power. At first, it is Rumbella who shows the example and how to do everything properly. Water appears in the bottle, which sparkles beautifully, and it is time for the students. The girl asks herself to pull herself together, and then, after the words are read, a stream of water flows somewhere upward, causing everyone around to scream from the excessive force of the direction. They order her to stop and cast some kind of counterspell, which in theory should work well, but the little girl doesn't even know what it is. Rumbella uses some kind of power, but nothing works even after a professional approach. It seems that no one can stop even a freshman. Gibbet's man was pulled away from his lesson. The director decided to talk about something, or more precisely, about his father's latest donation, which he made to the academy for his son's success. There is some noise in the classroom, and because of the amount of water, the students' uniforms are wet. They are standing knee-deep in water. Tuarish is unable to do anything. She wants to cry, because something terrible happened because of her. A woman stands in a man's office and insistently asks him to forbid a student from studying magic. It cannot help, and even more so, it can harm other students. The old man himself had already seen what it meant to have too much ability. Because of the girl, there was almost a flood that interrupted their lesson. The children's education was under threat because of one person. It's scary to even imagine what could have happened if Gebetsman hadn't intervened with his magic and made sure that everything ended more or less well. The ice froze the water. The director is so reluctant to remove the magician that he finds all sorts of excuses. He smiles, saying that they now have a skating rink, but Rumbella is not impressed. Jokes aside, if a person has enormous abilities that he cannot control, he is considered a dangerous creature for the environment. To add to the whole problem, the lady belongs to the Rudvik family, which is one of the strongest. The teacher insists on a ban that must be passed. Everything is still unclear, because if you think about it, you can remember that the task of teachers is to teach children to control their powers and subjugate them. A compromise can always be found. A person will be invited to the academy who will help to understand whether Tuarish is really as dangerous as the woman thinks. Duke Gerver is a weak good option to cope with the job. He has the ability of a discerning eye. It will help to find out the whole truth about the girl. There is silence in the Rodwick mansion, but only Ian and Blake are sitting in the living room. The man called the guy, so suddenly, because he seems to have discovered the true cause of the ailment he has. In ancient times, there was an artifact that was endowed with a curse that infected other people. It did not detach from the body and sealed their magical power in its cocoon, not allowing them to use it. There is something cursed on the guy's body. A second later, he fully understood the situation, which made his soul incredibly sad. He knew that his father did not love him, but he did not think that this would happen. It will be very difficult to remove the pendant, because according to the rules, the curse can only be removed by the man himself, and all this applies only to him. If he tries to remove it forcibly, he may lose his life. There is a brooch on the table, which is also an artifact, but slightly modified. It cannot release the power, but at least it will stop sleepwalking. Rodvik apologizes for not being able to help, but the kid is happy that there is at least something the young man is truly. A pity he fell under the power of a madman who sees nothing but himself. Philip came to report on the past week Risha was fine. Nothing terrible seemed to have happened, and she was happy, but there was something very strange. The man fell silent, because he remembered that his daughter seemed to like Ian if he hadn't been just a friend of Tuarish. They definitely wouldn't have helped him, but since that was the case, nothing could be said. Smiling but showing his true anger, the young man says that he remembers that he and his daughter were good friends, and of course, the treatment will not go beyond what is permitted. The next morning, Ianvine met his friend in the hallway. As it turned out, she was trying to hide. The children did not leave her alone immediately after that unpleasant incident. A group of classmates look around the corridors, trying to figure out where the blonde went. They haven't had this much fun in a long time, so they wanted to be close to the student. The girl seemed embarrassed that her popularity had suddenly increased, but this was normal for such a person. The guy took his friend outside to a quieter place. The girl admits that she didn't create the rink, hoping that the conversation can be continued. The blonde says that he returned from a meeting with Mr. Blake. The Duke found a way to help the baby with his illness, and now his condition will improve significantly. Without holding back her emotions, the beauty climbs up to hug him, exclaiming that it's wonderful. It is impossible to believe that the girl was so happy that she even cried. Her friend survived and found a new meaning. He only thanks Tuarish. He should be grateful to her. The girl came to dinner with her brother, and he immediately started asking if his sister had been crying. Her eyes were a little wet, which made it clear that someone had made her feel bad. The blonde would probably get into trouble if anyone found out she was talking to Ian, so she had to say she just missed her dad. If the girl is so bored, then instead of empty tears, she should go home this weekend. Theon can apply for an exit visa. First years are not allowed to leave the academy, but in their case, it will always be possible to come to an agreement. The guy always grumbles when he cares, but remains faithful. Having said goodbye to his sister, the hero leaves. He truly understands why the girl cried. So much a person like her can easily give her life for her father. A few months ago, there was a conversation. Theon was told that he was lucky because Risha was waiting for him at home, unlike the Robin half-sisters, who could not be calm at all. Theon thought that the girl really did look like a cute dog. Considering the way she was looking at him, a knight of the Rodwick family was riding towards them. It was that year that the girl became very ill. The servants whispered that they did not believe that the girl would die so easily, being such a young person. The fear inside the boy's chest made him cry, because he didn't want his sister to pass away, just like his mother. She should have lived happily ever after. The boy began to draw parallels that time in the forest. When they were attacked, he did not feel bad in the morning, but Tuarish was nearby. The same thing happened with his father. He felt much better while his daughter was lying in bed. I want to start praying, because for now, this is the only existing hope that remains. The mother is no longer there, but the girl must survive and be there. The brunette promises that he will protect his sister for the rest of his life, because he understands that since she survived, the responsibility fell on his shoulders. It is unclear whether the Lord answered the Duke's prayers or decided to save a pure soul. But the most important thing is that she is now healthy and is next to him. The oath of that day will be in this life, perhaps forever. Now the man will no longer allow his sister to be in danger and feel that no one will help her. The next day, after classes, the club started its meeting. Zig calls the girl closer to them in the room that was specially allocated for their circle. The third years said that they would come later, since they had another lecture. The girl nods, but does not understand. According to the stories of others, New clubs usually do not receive premises right away. The club room was obtained so immediately. For some reason, it can be considered surprising, but only for Serdaya. The oddities are not revealed because he is aware that Robenhaf got the place by threatening the members of the council. A sign has already been hung on the door, and one can go and see what's inside. Opening it from the other side, the group runs into Gebetsman, who looks at them with his usual indifferent gaze. They haven't seen Twarish for a long time, so they immediately go to have some tea. The girl hopes that nothing will go wrong and will end on a good note. Blue Eyes was in the principal's office, where they were discussing scholarships, and the old man had one more spare question he wanted to ask. Perhaps Gibbetsman maintains contact with Gerver, and I would like to discuss a certain student with him, but the man is almost always absent. Rish has amazing potential, but some teachers think that her power is dangerous. It was necessary to find out the Duke's opinion. Since it was not possible to meet the old man, was going to send a letter, the Duke abruptly snatches the paper from his hands. Gibbetsman asked to provide him with all the troubles. If he meets him, he will definitely pass on the message and ask him to come to the academy. They want to show Blake's daughter to the Duke, who previously tried to attack Theon. It would be good to make him their ally. Ian thought the man had come to visit his son, but it seemed that was not the case. After finishing his tea, he said goodbye and packed his things. Gibbetsman has also accumulated a lot of energy. We need to figure out when we can try to carry out a full cleansing. If the boy's father gets sick, he will probably be very upset, and this cannot be allowed under any circumstances. The girl promises herself to come up with a way out of the situation. It is better not to think about the next plan, but to accept a pleasant gift. A beautiful puppy is handed over to the blonde in honor of her joining the club. Even though the brother grumbles all the time, he seems happy that the lady joined their club and everything ended on a positive note. Suddenly, something hit him right in the heart. The brunette bends over. He himself does not understand what is happening, but says that nothing happened to divert suspicion. Gibbetsman passed the letter to his friend. The director said that he was going to consult with Gerver about one student and her unusual powers. If the mail had been delivered, a big disaster would have happened. The head of the academy is engaged in literally meaningless activities that will give him nothing. Now Blake is in debt to the Duke, but he is going to discuss this later. He heard that it was all started by a teacher named Rumbella Izimit. The woman is principled, and moreover cannot tolerate students who do not meet her high standards. Probably Twarish's potential, in her opinion, went to someone who was absolutely unworthy, and this is just a coincidence of circumstances that happened. If left as is, the Duke's daughter will be tormented until graduation. This time it is better to agree to the test. The man refuses again. There is another way that can be used. Gerver is not the only one with insight, so it won't be too difficult to pull off what you have planned. The Trinity sits at the table and plays bricks. The lady does not know what to draw, but no matter which one she loses, in any case, most likely she has already lost. In the end, the girl's brother ended up with 5 wins ahead. She just needs to win a few times to get past him. Of course, this is more like a pipe dream. The guy is lying on the table unconscious if he's angry. It is because on the weekends they make him play Jenga. Otherwise, there are not many options. Something is wrong with the young man. He suddenly felt ill, and now he lies unconscious, trying to swallow air. It is difficult for him to breathe. There is very little energy around the body, and compared to that time in the forest, this is really nothing, so it is not clear what is wrong. It might be a common cold, but then the girl could use a piece of the star and thus heal it, making the pain less. Jumping up, the young man pushes his sister away, asking her to never touch him again. Philip is instructed to convey to the mansion about a meeting with the Duke. I had to ask him to never let the lady touch me, but it was clear that this would not end well. The hero goes forward and falls to the floor. Night has already fallen, eyes slowly open, but it is quite difficult because the body hurts. The girl was nearby all this time. The father came and asked if his son was okay. Sometimes it is worth using the girl's abilities. Simply ignoring would not be the best option. Rish was afraid that something would happen to her brother. But even in such a situation, she kept her promise not to come closer under any circumstances. The young man is asked why he forbade himself from being touched, but in his head he again remembers that very moment in the forest when he was told the truth. For some reason, the brunette thinks that his sister is a special child, who is very different from all the others. Virgo is truly the best, so the family is obliged to protect her, providing her with joy in life, without the losses that she may experience. It seems the boy received a letter. When the time comes with Ian, they will come to the estate. The professor wants to forbid the use of magic, and thinks that it is dangerous to possess something that cannot be controlled. Rumbella was going to find out how dangerous the lady was, with the help of Duke Gerver. They were even going to send him a letter to make it clear. The father will never allow something to happen that his daughter did not want, and he hopes that his son will also help him in fulfilling what will be difficult. In the morning, her eyes barely opened. The girl couldn't sleep normally at all. She didn't think that the teacher would be so dangerous for her. Thank God Blake refused to show the beauty to Gervera. But at night, a nightmare appeared, intending to return the lady to her past. The girl wants to see Python again, as if nothing had happened, to discuss everything. Highkank promised something, but never showed up again. A familiar voice is heard. This time, it is definitely not an illusion. There is a man standing on the table, waving his hand to the side as if greeting. Now the girl is in her original form, being a squirrel. She had many limited abilities. Stars are like gods that people worshipped. Unfortunately, nothing lasts forever, so some of them were forgotten again over time. Unable to remain in the new dimension any longer, they returned to their graves, where they slowly lost their strength and fell into an endless sleep. All this is more reminiscent of ancient prophecies. God is not so good that he will be like before, but not so bad that he will go to rest. There is a fire in the girl's eyes, because she considers Python to be as wonderful as before. She just doesn't understand how she managed to escape from Hikanki's. The redhead herself does not know whether she managed to leave completely. It feels like she remained a part of consciousness, and this will remain true for now. It turns out that God got out of his vessel, but was unable to return the permanent body. In his case, we can consider that he has already taken his due revenge. We need to remember the moment when the man temporarily freed the one he had imprisoned. That was the last chance to do something and make it a reality. The conversation turns to the day when Ian fell into the water and they tried to get him out, and when Hikanka took the lady into that forest, saying that the boy was dying. Using his manipulation ability, the man tricked the star by pretending to be in the vessel again while hiding in the knight's body. The guy was quietly pumping out all his strength, trying to finish what he started as quickly as possible. And now that man lost his strength and fell asleep. No longer able to hold back the tears that flow down her cheeks, the main character is grateful that she was finally able to see her friend. The girl obviously had a hard time, and if so, it would be better to stop crying and calmly tell everything she had to go through. From the very first words, the young man began to get angry, because some people want to forbid the lady to use her magic, which cannot be controlled. Python is not going to back down or calm down, because in his understanding, this is already something terrible. It cannot be postponed. It needs to be sorted out. To use magic, you need to cast long spells of people, otherwise there is no other way to reveal your potential. This is what Rumbella said. The redhead explains that, written only for normal humans, they were created to try to survive the power of the stars with tiny abilities. Several days passed. Everyone gathered in the director's office to understand how strong Lady Twarish really was, and whether she was dangerous to society. The guy asks his girlfriend not to worry, with just his lips. He asks Rodvik if he can start what he has started. Using his divine eye, the boy rubs his eyes and says that the student is fine. There is no need to restrict her so much. Of course, the first to object is the woman who started all this in the first place. She screams, trying to prove that the matter is not finished. Isimit had once seen the Duke use his powers, and his eyes had almost glowed like lanterns, rather than emitting a glint. The gentleman might not have used his insight, because his pupils only began to glow for a moment, and then everything stopped. It is not necessary that everyone with the power have the same manifestations, but Rumbella does not believe it. She thinks that the Duke is using some tricks. If this is true, the blonde herself intends to prove that the woman thinks that she cannot control her strength, but this is not true. Twarish trained hard just to prove she was capable, but the words slightly frighten those gathered, because they are aware of the potential. Since the Duke's daughter said that she did her best to improve herself, they should be witnessing neither failure nor success. The ghouls move. The heroine casts a short spell, which according to Rumbella, will not help her control the power. At first, the lady transferred to the faculty because the director himself suggested it, But now she is very interested in doing this. She trains hard. Making cute eyes, the girl again promises that she will continue to make the world only better and will be calm. She asks to continue studying. The director, without hesitation, promises that everything will be fine, and the discussion of the ban on the use of magic ends there. The girl didn't forget to thank her friend for the help he gave her this morning. He smiles, even though he didn't do anything special. Even the potion that can change the color of the eyes was also prepared by His Grace the Duke, so everything said should apply to him. Thanks to Indwin creating the right atmosphere, the main character also had the courage to show her abilities, which means much more. Python has already returned to her squirrel body, which she found. She says that she is grateful to him because only she transformed stupid human formulas. A beeping sound is heard, and it turns out that Siegbert has been sitting in the guy's jacket pocket all this time, having transformed himself to be present. He warns that Rish needs to run. Theon is bored in class since that day his sister has not come closer to him. He meant not to touch him, only when he is bad, but not always. There are some sounds outside the window that really attract attention. Monsters have appeared from somewhere in the courtyard of the academy. It is becoming impossible to remain calm. People run in different directions to save their lives, and only Dirkadion and Robinhalf know what they have to do. After some time, the duo dealt with everyone, but it is still not clear where the monsters from that forest came from. Most likely Rish is next to her father, and everything is fine with her. The Duke came to the academy today, and this makes my soul feel better. For some reason, an extremely strange thought suddenly came to the hero's mind. It lingered inside, making him doubt what was happening. Monsters usually have no intelligence. They behave as they want, but then someone forced them to gather together and attack the students' academy. The nearest habitat is 5 days away by car. There are a lot of students in this place, and if anything happens, someone will protect them. But the fact remains a fact. It was today that the boy's father came to the academy. Someone might be deliberately trying to force the man to use his abilities. A bird flies in the sky. It seems like another monster, but it turns out to be a metamorphosis of Zig, who took his friends with him. The boy sank to the ground, and the lady who immediately got off smiled. She was glad that everything was all right with the young man. The father is with the teachers who are building a protective barrier. He was the first to volunteer to protect the school from monsters. It seems that they don't attack the children because they consider Serdia to be their relative. He is the same huge size. They received permission to help the others. Everyone is already in the shelter. All that remains is to go there ourselves. A maid runs to meet them, shouting that Robinhalf's father is in danger. The Duke lies unconscious on the bed. A lot of Ohm energy has accumulated around him. On the way to the academy, he met a bunch of monsters. The knight was supposed to protect the owner, but nothing worked. The director had not seen a person with such a concentration of magic inside for a long time. If the blonde clears the man, he will most likely survive. But there are too many people around. She has one idea of what to do. Robinhalf wants to send his father home, because as soon as the carriage arrives at the mansion, he will also go there. Blue Eyes is glad that Duke Rodvik will stay with him. When an old friend is nearby, the man will be able to prepare more calmly. The boy said goodbye and left. The heroine is going to go inside and asks to cast some perception magic. It is better to take advantage of the moment and go inside while no one is able to see the human form. This way, everything will be decided. The brother appeared behind, asking why and how the sister used magic. The star is surprised how he managed to recognize such details. The guy noticed that the lady became so pale, as if she would disappear if this was magic. It would be better not to do such things in front of him anymore, because it seemed that she was about to die. Knowing in advance what Tuarish had planned, the man says that he forbids her from making any movements. He knows how dangerous it can be. The guy calls his friends, asking if they have seen the squirrel that the dog raised. He does not say why he does this. He just does what he thinks is right. Ianvain begins to look at the baby in the same way as Zig, who does not forget to mention that he too can become the same animal. The guy using sleight of hand tied up the trio to keep them all together. Serdia must help him and watch the lady until the very end. The girl could suffer again like last time, and Rodvik's condition leaves much to be desired. Even at this stage, the responsibility is on their shoulders.